You have topics on your phone.
I do.
Yeah.
My first topic is our cold opens. They suck.
Okay.
Sometimes they're good. We chat a little bit, and then the theme song plays.
I think they're always hitting. Come on.
What? There's that one, I don't remember which one it is, where I'm like, I got this new watch. Do you like it? And you're like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like,
That's hilarious.
yeah.
That's perfect.
And then it's over. It's not that good.
That sounds great to me.
All right, so my first, lately, I think we've talked about this before. I'm trying to quit smoking. Unrelated to that, I've just been furious all the time. And so I was thinking about how we have bad cold opens. And so I've just been writing down things that I'd like to bitch about. I recommend you do the same, because I'm tired of doing all the lifting on this podcast. Let's see, which ones? I'm going to read a few of them off. You tell me which one, okay?
Okay.
Most podcasts are bad. Just because someone finishes a painting doesn't mean it's good. I am the Wallish / soulful song covers.
Uh-huh.
The 2 types of cat piss and the hole in my pants.
I'm interested in almost all of those except the hole in your pants.
Okay.
That
one doesn't have legs, really. I just have the same hole in all my pants. I don't know where it's coming from.
Where?
Just like right over my phone.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'll show you right here.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Most pairs of pants that I have after I have them for 6 months just get a hole right there. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Interesting.
So I'll check that one off the list.
Okay. Most podcasts are bad. I feel like I can agree with that, but I would like to hear your take. Sure.
I get ads for podcasts while I'm listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And they're bad.
Yeah.
They're just people who are like pretty monotone, doing like a bit.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa, you seem to have some problems. You could fix that by listening to Schmarsts and Darsts on Feral Audio.
Yeah.
Every Monday and Tuesday, we do this. And then another person who has the same key in their voice is like, yes, and every week we get together and we talk about,
Yeah.
you should listen. You
Yeah.
got some problems, lady. And it's just like, this is bad.
Yeah.
And then I think all in all, there's 5 good podcasts.
Sometimes I get impressed. I'll see like an ad for a podcast I've never heard of, and they're kind of like in the midst of just riffing, and the riffing is good.
Yeah.
Like that's how I found that that Time of the Month podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
Like their clips are always just them hitting.
Oh, it's so good.
Like
yeah.
them just being like, kangaroos are kind of jacked, like low key sexy. But anyways, but yeah, no, because like I feel like the other thing that happens with podcasts that makes it bad is like when they do that like Jay and Silent Bob thing, where like Jay's just like they're just telling a story. They're like, so we went and talked to Holden McNeil, and Holden loves his sandwich. And they're just like, were you just talking about your buddy? Like, who is this that you're talking about? Like, I feel like that's a problem that podcasts have too, where they're like almost having a conversation that you feel like you're not a part of.
Yeah. And also, while we're doing this podcast, I think of none of these things, so we could be doing all of them for all I know.
No, I think usually we say like, oh, we have a friend who doesn't like Twin Peaks, and then cut it there. It's not like we go into this long thing. You know?
Okay, yeah.
So I think we're not doing that one.
And
also, we don't really do bits. I mean, like we do little like
I'd love to.
little one-liners or like tags. You know, a little bit of riffing.
We have that Back to the Future one we're never going to release, where I don't know if you remember this, but I did like a 30-minute bit where I was a mailman that walked into the room.
Very hot, very drunk for that one.
Yeah, I had the keyboard. I kept doing the door opening and close thing, and the mailman kept coming back and leaving, and you guys were just not into it, but I was, so I kept doing it.
It's very funny.
And it's bad, so we're not going to show it to anyone.
Yeah, most podcasts, it's sort of one of those things where like, as a medium, it so closely resembles like just a couple of people talking, and long story short, different strokes for different folks. You know, the type of person I find interesting isn't going to be the type that someone else finds interesting. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Such a niche market. You know?
Yeah, but my biggest complaint though is I haven't listened to all the podcasts, but I don't think I've ever heard a good ad for a podcast.
Oh, for sure. Well,
except for this time, that time of the week.
But like,
which also I've never listened to their podcasts. I just love their clips.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so odd, like something like lore.
Yeah.
So very niche, right? You don't like it. I haven't really found many people who do like it. But it's like a combination of like history, horror, and put you to sleep. You know what I mean? Like it's, you know, if you're into any one of those three, I don't think you're going to necessarily like this. Because if you're really into history, are you really going to be into like the spooky stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe you're into the spooky stuff. Well, are you really that much into history? And maybe you are into both, but do you really want something that's going to lull you to sleep, or do you want something with a little more
Exactly.
Gusto.
So, bottom line, there's 5 good podcasts. And now, thanks to us, there's 6.
Aw.
And that's what we'll put the theme song in right there.
Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumley, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week.
You been to the movies lately, Chris?
I went and saw The Batman Tuesday night. I think that was a little early. It was an AMC fan event.
Ooh.
Yeah. Saw The Batman. Got there, and this is the first time in a long time that I've been to a movie theater where the seats were not big lazy boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was like an industry standard at this point. Like it was just something that they had done to.
Was it like a big screen?
Yeah, it was an IMAX.
Yeah, I don't think IMAX does that.
How long until they start? Because that shit was not worth spending $20 on.
Yeah.
Just to have the screen be that big.
Yeah.
To be that uncomfortable the whole time. I'd rather see it on a smaller screen than a lazy boy.
I don't love the lazy boys. I
like them more than it's like I was on a bus.
Whenever I'm in
a public bus, not even a school bus, a public bus.
Whenever I'm in a lazy boy, I recline in it because everybody reclines in it. And I'm like kind of sleepy and I'm comfy and I'm watching this movie. But when I'm in a chair watching a movie, I'm like, I am fucking in this because I want to forget how uncomfortable I am. So I'm just engrossed in this movie.
Worse than chair. Like one of those things where like the arm's like that thick.
Yeah.
So your arm is directly behind the person next to you.
Yep.
You know? And it's also like against your ribs basically. And you're just sitting there like the guy next to me, I could smell his deodorant.
Cool.
The whole time. And it was very clearly one of those things where like he had caked it on. He must be very self-conscious about his situation. And he just kept moving, and I'm like, you smell like an air freshener more than fucking like you've been deodorized. You don't smell like you've been deodorized.
Well, it's probably better than him smelling like an arm.
It is, but it was wafting.
Yeah.
It was like that what is it? No disrespect. I'm just saying it was a mouthful. It was Old Spice, Fiji.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Fiji, the tan one. That's what it was.
The Old Spice blows ass.
Yeah. Anyways, yes, it was a lot of people. It was packed. It was full, actually. And I remember my dad, he's the one that got me the ticket, leaned over to me and was like, I'm a little antisocial. This kind of got me, I'm a little anxious, honestly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a pretty social guy. I feel claustrophobic. Like, I feel like I'm struggling to breathe. Like, it was fucking weird. Like, by the end of it, I had taken off the sweater I took in because it was so hot. Just having that many people in a room, like I haven't been in a room with that many people since before the pandemic. I swear to God.
Yeah,
it was fucking packed.
I went on Friday with our good friend Elton for the podcast, and we went out I think 6, and there weren't that many people there. We got in, and I think there were a few seats available in our theater still. And like halfway through, I got up to go to the bathroom. When we went out, it was packed. Like it was like elbow to elbow. And yeah, I started feeling the same way. I was like, oh, this is a lot of people.
Yeah, because usually when we go see movies, we're like the only person in there besides one other guy.
Yeah, we go like in the middle of the day. Anyway, mail time.
Oh, thank you. This one says to the Batman. And it looks just like the Riddler's handwriting.
It's a great bit.
He didn't lick it much. I wonder if it's because he's like worried about DNA.
I can't lick through the mask. It's a great visual bit for our podcast.
Should I read this like the Riddler?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Or you could try. Or you could read it like Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, from your secret friend. Who? Haven't a clue. Let's play a game. Just me and you. Riddle me this. How many live-action Batman movies are there? 13. There are 13. That's exactly how many dogs that Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne have. I was just watching a clip on YouTube. Keep watching Osbourne clips.
I don't think anyone should be allowed to have more than one dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
I mean,
but that's...
Actually, you know what?
Cap it.
Fuck it. Have as many dogs as you'd like. It's a big problem. There's a lot of stray dogs. A lot of dogs getting put down. If you want to have 30 dogs, have 30 dogs. I immediately changed my mind. Save the dogs.
Not including movies that feature Ben Affleck as Batman. That's a lot of Batman. Matt Reeves just made one. It's called The Batman, and it's good. Not bad. I liked it. Batman has been Batman for like 2 years, and everyone hates him. Criminals, civilians, cops, they just hate his stinking guts. Even his own butler doesn't really seem to care for him too much. Only his best friend Jim Gordon likes him. He likes him so much that he set up a spotlight on a roof to get his attention rather than, shoot him a text or something. Meanwhile, a serial killer named the Riddler starts following folk and leaving behind greeting cards labeled for the Batman. Is he printing these cards himself? Is there a store nearby his house that's selling very specific 1950s greeting cards? That's one riddle we never solve. Anyway, Robert Pattinson kicks dick as Batman. Zoe Kravitz kicks dick as Catwoman. Paul Dano kicks dick. Colin Farrell kicks dick. And Jeffrey Wright kicks everyone's dick into the dirt as Jim Gordon. Holy freaking cannoli. Jeffrey Wright acts his dick off in this. It's the best looking Batman film, without question. The Batmobile is the coolest the Batmobile has ever been, and Batman having an inner monologue and a belt full of gadgets is something wonderful to finally see in a Batman flick. The mystery is trying to the mystery Batman is trying to solve unfortunately falls flat, but ends in a cool little twist when you learn the Riddler's true motivation. Oh, and it's too long. 6.5 out of 10.
So like we just said, you went and saw this movie 3 days before I did.
Yeah.
And you came home and you said, Nick, this movie's so good, it made me cry. It's the most oversold I've ever heard a movie be. I like this movie.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it again. I don't know what it is. Sorry, I know we usually start with you, but
no, it's fine.
You got a lot to say, so I'll be the downer, and then you can bring it up after I'm done.
Yeah, I got a lot to say. I even have screenshots of other people from Reddit that I want to quote for bringing them beautiful things to my attention.
Okay. I like this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I'd like to see it again. There's just something about it that falls flat for me, and I can't put my finger on it. Yeah. I think maybe it's that, like, overall, which I think this is really cool, and this is what a Batman movie should be. Yeah. It's a murder mystery. Yeah. Batman's being a detective trying to solve shit. But as this goes on and as the mystery unfolds, I kind of just don't really care. Yeah. Like, as it's going on, I'm like, okay. And I think a good mystery movie, I see a lot of people relate this to Seven, which I think is unjust. I remember the first time I saw Seven, every time something gets revealed or a little progress gets made in the case, I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit, where is this going to go? I swear too much. In this, every time they figure something out, I'm like, okay. They had me at the beginning where they go into the garage and there's the scissors and the tire and they go in and they find the thumb drive with the thumb on it and they push the thumb on the thing and then it sends out all the things and I'm like, okay, this is cool. I like that. But from then on, I was like, a rat with wings? Okay. Oh, you are L rat with wings? So it's a you are... Okay. Yeah, all right, let's go. Oh, it says drive? Okay. Yeah, all right. Cool. And then there's some bits at the end when spoilers, Falcone gets shot. Spoilers. And he's holding them and he looks up at the light and he goes, when he's brought to the light. And it's like, oh yeah, because he brought Falcone out to the light and then the Riddler shot him. My favorite part of this whole movie is when that happens. He goes, bring him out into the light. And he looks up at the light. A dude 2 seats down from me went, oh shit. I was like, yeah, man. But I love all the performances in this movie. I think they're pretty good. I think the characters aren't written super well, but like we've been talking about since this movie came out, they don't really need to be because everybody knows who these people are because there's been 13 Batman movies and Batman's been around for 100 years. But I just think, it's a movie. Give me a little bit of character with these characters, But I think it looks great. I think it's a lot of fun. A lot of cool stuff happens. I'm excited to see it again. Except I'm not because it's 3 hours long. Chris, how'd you feel about The Batman?
Well, first I want to talk about the Seven. We just watched Seven. I disagree with you.
It does not hold up, no.
Yeah, I was going to say, every time something was revealed, I don't remember ever being like, whoa. The only thing that was really surprising me was I was like, okay, I'm kind of digging like the edgy, based on the 7 deadly sins, but like at a certain point that's like got an edgelord cap on it. I remember that'll probably maybe the one that we put out after, maybe. Okay. Just because it's topical and it's in our back catalog. So there you go, little teaser. Here's a little teaser. We're talking about 7 next week, I think. I don't remember ever being like, oh, my dick is gone.
I think the thing about 7 is it's one of those things where it's like it came out at the perfect time.
Yeah.
And there have been more and better mysteries in film and TV that make you go, oh shit. So when you watch 7, you're like, this is kind of an old hat. I've seen this before.
Yeah. But anyways, I remember hearing in the reviews just leading up to it. I usually, like we talked about many times, I don't really read reviews of movies. I also don't really check them out after a lot. But for this film, I did do a lot of Reddit reading about like what fans had to say. But I remember seeing in my peripheral vision that people kept comparing it to Seven, and what's the other one that they kept comparing it to? Oh, Zodiac.
Okay.
Excuse me. And I definitely get that. And I think those are both in tone. Are those both Fincher movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's both. Yeah, both kind of in tone and atmosphere. I mean, the mask that the Zodiac is, I mean, not the Zodiac, the Riddler's wearing feels a little Zodiac-ish.
Yeah.
You know, the ciphers and the riddles and stuff like that feel a bit Seven-ish. But it's also just kind of like, it feels kind of like an ode to that era of Fincher movies. I know that's a 10-year gap, but you know what I mean. Like, when Fincher was interested in people murdering.
This movie should have been set in the 90s, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I think it would have been chef's kiss. Yeah.
Yeah. From the rip, I was not excited for this movie. My expectations were very low. As you said, there have been 13 Batman movies. I really didn't think they needed to do another one.
And this is funny because I was on the opposite side of that.
Yeah.
I felt there's been 13 Batman movies.
Yeah.
Kind of don't give a shit about another one.
Yeah.
And they put out that first trailer, and I'm like, I am so fucking in.
Yeah, thought it was trash. I was really on the fence about the Nirvana thing. To me, Bruce Wayne looked like he was doing like a Spider-Man 3 Tobey Maguire symbiote kind of emo hair, like My Chemical Romance kind of like emo brooding. Batman looked perhaps a little like too brutal at the time because it was like those trailers were kind of coming out at a time where like, you know, sort of like police brutality was on the rise, and I was like, well, this is a little like right-wing extremist. The whole idea of becoming a vigilante who runs around and beats up poor people, like, it rubbed me the wrong way.
Hey,
anyways,
son, it's never been on the rise. It's always been a problem.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, like, in terms of like the social cognitive.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just for a multitude of reasons, there wasn't a whole lot of like lust for me to see this thing. So from the rip, I was pretty much proven wrong on all accounts. I felt like this is probably going to go ahead and be kind of chronological for me. And I'll try to like think of things as I remember them, and hopefully I cover all the bases because I feel like this movie got a lot to talk about. I guess before we even get into chronological, sound design, Auto This World, the guy who did the soundtrack is apparently the guy who's also been doing the Marvel Spider-Man, which is
Michael Giacchino?
Yeah, which is very impressive for him to have that kind of range.
Oh yeah, he's been doing everything. That guy's on fire lately.
The Batman theme specifically, I keep seeing people online bring up is an old sort of classical music leitmotif.
Yeah.
Has a lot to do. It's supposed to. Those 4 notes are synonymous with sort of death.
Oh, it's very cool. I love it.
It is the dum 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 dum.
It's great. I love how many different versions they have in it.
Yeah.
When this movie starts and it's the Riddler looking through his binoculars and Ave Maria is playing, I was like, ooh, so on board. You put Ave Maria in a movie and I'm in. But then it ended up being his theme throughout the movie, and I was like, okay, I like it a little less. And then when he's in the jail cell singing it, I'm like, you ruined it. I don't like this anymore.
Yeah, I didn't care for that. I saw a lot of people online talk about they really dug that. I thought it was fine until he started singing it. That was a little over for me, but neither here nor there. We start with him watching The Family, correct?
Yes.
Oh, before we even get into chronological, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. This, to me, feels exactly like when I saw The Last Jedi. Yeah. I feel like Matt Reeves did to Batman what
Rian Johnson
did despite that Star Wars movie.
Yep.
Because right from the rip, you get that view of what me in the theater, as well as people next to me, I could hear them whispering. They're like, oh, is that Thomas Wayne and like Bruce Wayne? And then you're like, oh, no, it's not. Which is another reversal you get later that they play on when you get that downward shot above the lamplight with him holding Falcone. It's a lot like how you usually see Bruce holding his family. Yeah. So there's a lot of that in this movie where they play with that kind of a thing. So anyways, right off the rip, you get that. That was neat. The Riddler commits his murder. He spends a long time standing behind him. It's a very tense scene.
Love all this.
Yeah. He's in the dark. He's watching him lose a town hall meeting with the other mayoral candidate. What's his name again? The mayor guy. I'm so bad with movie names. Anyways, it's the Riddler's first victim. He goes down, and I think the next thing, do you see Batman come to that crime scene, or do you get the shit where he's giving his first inner monologue?
I think it's that. You see the city.
The inner monologue?
I love all of this.
Yeah, I love him having that journal. I'm just going to skip to that part where he comes home, and it's like Gotham Project Year 2.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's a nice way. I think that's another thing this movie does amazingly. It knocks it out of the park with showing and not just telling. So that's one where you just get this right there. It tells you this is a Batman who's only been doing this for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I might forget it, I'll bring it up now. Another example, I have to actually thank a Reddit user for bringing it up to me, of them doing a great job of showing and not telling. I actually didn't screenshot the user's name, but
fuck him.
On Reddit, someone pointed out that in the beginning of the film, Batman saves a guy from getting mugged, right?
Yeah.
And at this point in the film, Batman is obsessed with the idea of being vengeance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after he saves that guy, the guy says, "Please don't hurt me," to him, because he's afraid of him.
Yeah.
Most people don't like him. Most people are afraid of him. But by the end of the movie, people are willing to follow him through the wreckage as he holds or that lady who's getting onto the stretcher, right? She's like afraid to get on the stretcher. She's holding his hand or whatever, and that's when she feels comforted and stuff like that, right? So by the end of it, the whole message of Batman, the whole arc that the character has, is that he realizes that he can't just be this aggressive, punch your problems kind of Batman, and instead he's got to be, something more for the city, hope as it is, which is exactly the message of Star Wars also, kind of into Star Wars. But anyways,
that might be one of the biggest problems I have with this movie. Is I agree with you. All that happens, and it's very cool, and it's a very nice arc to have.
Yeah.
And you can tell me if I'm wrong. This movie's 3 hours. There's a good chance I just don't remember or missed some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all of that is told and not shown.
Mm-hmm. I
don't think you ever see times where Batman starts to realize that he's wrong.
I think it's twofold.
Until my favorite part of this movie, where he's talking to Riddler, and Riddler thinks that they're in on it together.
Yeah.
And I love that. Sorry, we're just skipping ahead and we want to go chronological.
No, that's fine. It's also as I remember it, because I will forget if I don't follow certain tangents as they occur.
But the Riddler tells him, like, "Oh no, I was leaving those notes for you, not for like, hey, we're playing this game and you're catching me, but because we're doing this together. You brought Falcone out for me."
Yeah.
That's what happened. And then when they're in the wherever, he's fighting all the other Riddler guys, and he takes the mask off, and someone goes, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm Vengeance."
Yeah.
Batman's like, "Nah, fuck, these guys think that we're on the same side."
Yeah.
And then that turn is immediate. He jumps off and then helps those people, and it doesn't really feel... It doesn't feel earned to me. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I could be missing it. There's nothing I want more than to love this movie. So when I see it again, I'm really going to try.
But yeah, those are the 2 points. It's the conversation he has with Riddler, where basically he becomes... he begins to wake up from his delusion being that he's justified in his behavior and his actions and in his motivations. And he realizes that his motivations, his attitude, his behavior is... 1-to-1 with the Riddler. The only difference being that he won't kill.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other one, being exactly that. He spent the whole movie calling himself Vengeance. In fact, I think Alfred's the only one who actually explicitly calls him the Batman in the movie, right?
Okay. Which
is the setup for the tee-off that happens. Not the tee-off, but like when the guy calls himself Vengeance, right? When he unmasks him on top of the... Yeah. And I just disagree in the sense that when that happened, I was like, oh, fuck. Yep, there it is. Yeah.
And I love that. And I think it's great, but take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because again, I could be wrong, and I'm a coward and I can't stick to anything that I'm saying. But I just feel like Batman isn't that big of a deal to anybody. And in this movie, no one really gives a shit about him or that he's there.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of, with the exception of the Riddler and that other guy, I feel like he doesn't have that big of an impact on Gotham at all. No one's really thinking about him.
Yeah. But I also think that's really fair. It's only year 2. He hasn't been around for that long.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I just when it comes to the turn at the end where he has to be Hope, I love all that. I think that's great, but also at the same time, it doesn't. you get that one example of that guy being afraid of him at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then the cops don't like him because he's a vigilante.
Mm.
And then at the end, everybody loves him. And again, I love all these beats. I love all these plot points, and they're
Yeah.
great to see, and I love them. But I just feel like they don't stick together that well.
Mhm.
Like there needs to be a little bit of meat in there somewhere for me. But I don't know how you would do that or where it would be. But yeah, it feels like the only people Batman fucks with are like Penguin and his goons and Riddler.
Mm.
But also, it's like we said. It's Batman. He's been doing this for 2 years. You get it. This shit has been happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can infer that. But again, just for my money for this movie,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to see the Waynes getting shot. I don't need to see the pearls flying or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I need a little bit more of Batman in this world doing Batman stuff to get who he is and where he's at,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Anyway, so that guy's getting mugged by the train.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose I disagree. I feel like he does a lot of Batman stuff. Like I said, this mugging happens, and then we go to the crime scene.
Oh, sorry. I think arguably the strongest part of this movie is these first 10 minutes,
Okay.
where it shows him walking around with his makeup on, and he's got a hat on, and he's like, I feel better at night.
Oh,
or
yeah,
whatever.
I forgot to mention. Yeah, this is the first time we ever get inner monologue,
And it's great.
For years and years and years, I've been out loud complaining about how that's like the one thing that always gets left out of like adaptations of Batman in the movies.
Yeah.
It's like such an integral part of the character in the comics, and it's just crazy that it's never shown up. I think that the inner monologue is synonymous with Batman, unlike any other comic book character. Almost like that is the character who you spend most of the time up in that brain case.
I wish this movie had more of it.
Yeah,
because it starts the movie and it ends the movie, but in the middle of it, there's almost none of it.
Yeah,
but I love all that. I love you seeing all these people, vandalizing and robbing and mugging, and I think you only get those 3 or 4 examples, but then it's just cutting between shots of them and like dark corners and stuff of where they are, and then progressively each of them, you cut to them noticing that dark corner or whatever, and they look up in the sky and they see the bat signal, and they look at that dark corner again and they get scared and they run until you get to the guy getting mugged on the train, and they look in that corner and you hear Batman walking towards them.
Yeah,
I think that's great. I think that's incredible. And I love Batman in this movie instead of like, I feel like Batman usually is like, you get 2 different Batman. You get the cool, sleek Batman who's a shadow, and he's just wisps into a place and beats up a bunch of guys, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
Or you get like the Frank Miller Batman who's this giant guy who, like, with skinny Batman, like, one of the big things about it is like you can't get your hands on him because he's so fast in a shadow or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love, personally, my favorite Batman is a big Frank Miller Batman who is slick and he's quiet and he can do all the sneaky stuff, but you might be able to get your hands on him, but you don't want to because he's so big. And I love that this Robert Pattinson Batman is kind of both of those.
Yeah.
When he comes in out of that dark hallway, he's not sneaking out. You hear his big giant boots walking up for like a minute.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything on his costume that could be doing this, but he's got a little jangle to him when he walks. Like there's a little ka-ching, ka-ching. So he feels like a cowboy through this whole movie, and I love it. I think it's great.
One of the things that's really going to impede my ability to take this chronologically without perhaps significant help from you is that it does not appear that there are fantastic synopses online.
Yeah,
so.
I get that.
What are you going to do? But anyways, they investigate the crime scene. I think this movie does a fantastic job of another thing that happens in the comics quite often is that, at least in early Batman stories, cops aren't totally on board with Mr. Batman. Or especially in later Batman stories because everybody's kind of involved in the corruption to some degree. There are a lot of cops like they're not a big fan. But yeah, anytime Batman's in a room with cops, it feels unlike any other Batman movie I've seen. For some reason, I'm just struggling to remember other Batman scenes where he really interacts with like a room full of cops.
Yeah.
You know, so like there you go in terms of like that's point one in terms of like him feeling like he's working a case or he's some sort of detective, right?
Yeah, I feel like usually in movies and stuff like that, he shows up and Gordon goes, "Give us the room," and all the other cops leave.
Yeah.
It's just the two of them, and I do love that. It's him and Gordon's kind of setting it up for him.
Yeah.
And he's saying nothing. Like he's impartial to all of them and doesn't really give a shit. It's great.
And so again, in terms of him being a detective, I think I like something I like a lot in this first scene, especially, is that he's sort of walking around and noticing things, and there's like a detective who's got like a clipboard who's following behind him and like writing shit down because he's noticing shit like the pile of blood where like the Tucker was thrown, you know, and stuff like that. The Riddler leaves his first little clue, and also Batman's the only one who solves the riddles in this movie. So there's the riddle inside of the fucking thing that says something like, "What does a liar do when he dies?" or whatever, right? And then like 2 minutes later, he's just like, "He lies still." And everybody's like, "What?" He's like, "What does a liar do when he's dead? He lies still."
There's like 100 of us in here, dude. You have to speak up. I cannot hear you.
And that was nice because I was actually racking my brain. I was sitting there like, "What the fuck does it do?" I'm awful at riddles.
Yeah, well,
I'm so bad. I've got like a stack of 250 riddles that Alicia bought me for my birthday one time, and we would do them during the pandemic, like each morning. Awful. They're also bullshit because half the times it's like, "What's black and white?" and you're like, "I don't know, a comic, cow, I don't know, salt and pepper." They're like, "Opinions" or something like that. It's like, "Oh, fuck you," you know, like
opinions. And I love him making eye contact with his little boy all the time.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's a great way for them to do the whole like trauma of dad and mom gone without having to do the alleyway anymore.
Yeah,
you know. Very emotionally resonant.
And I believe, in my heart of hearts, this little boy he could be Robin. I saw some people saying this because he's doing all that ninja shit at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I also I believe that he's the only person who knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Yeah.
Because they have that moment at the funeral when they look at each other and then he trusts him at the end. But also, more than any other Batman in any movie ever, the most distinct chin I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And even his nose, his real life nose, looks like the nose on the costume. Like he literally looks like he just painted the top of his head black. He looks the exact same.
Then we get Batman going home, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you get another little monologue, I believe. And he makes it home.
Takes out his cool contacts.
Takes out the cool contacts, which I like a lot.
I like the contacts. I didn't like the contacts. I was like, okay, that's a bit much. But I do, and I guess it makes sense so he could give it to Catwoman later.
And also, I think it plays into his observant nature.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole film, right? Like Bruce Wayne is not in this movie.
Yeah.
Just not in this movie,
Exactly.
which is very unlike any other Batman movie. And you get the reasoning right here in this scene. It's the first time that Alfred comes up and he says, "You know, you gotta be Bruce Wayne sometimes." And he's like, "That doesn't matter to me.
I don't give no shit about none of that." But back to the context real quick.
Oh, sorry.
I love that the shit he's looking, like when he puts the contacts down and he's getting the like information from it. I love how like everything's just red and all the technology on it looks like version 2. Like this thing is just barely working. Like there's no way to get a full color or like a clear picture. It's just here.
Yeah.
But like we've been saying with like the gadgets in the belt or like the monologue, I will not be happy until there's a Batman movie where Batman's eyes are white the entire time. That's what I want. I want a nice little cover over his eyes and those are the recorders and he's just wide-eyed the entire time.
What that reminded me of to a degree is something I was talking about with Elton and my dad. There was a certain point in this movie where I actually teared a little bit because I was like, damn, dude, this is 80 years of Batman rolled into one. Because even Elton brought it up before I had the chance. He was like, sometimes it feels like I'm watching a cartoon. But then at the same time, it feels like I'm watching, you know, like a real Batman movie.
Talking about it on our way home.
Yeah.
There are some wacky moments in this movie. And it's great.
But there's never a point, you know, someone on Reddit brought it up. They were like, it feels like I'm watching Batman the Animated Series because it knows exactly when to be like, hey, this is a comic book movie and hey, this is real life.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the Batman movie that I've seen that has the best balance of like knowing what is silly and what's not silly. And there are some comic book stuff that's just not silly that like for some reason Hollywood's been obsessed with like calling silly for so long. The example I always point to is in The Incredible Hulk with Mr. Fight Club Man when he's like really the purple pants and it's like, come on, who gives a shit about Hulk's pants being purple?
Yeah.
I know it's a silly little joke, but come on.
And I think the perfect balance of that in this movie is the Penguin.
Yeah.
And I feel this way, and I've heard a lot of people say this. It's like, I know that's Colin Farrell, but I just can't see Colin Farrell in there.
Swear to God, not once did I think that was Colin Farrell.
But you know what I do see when I look at him? A man in a big rubber mask, basically. So he looks straight out of a comic book, and he's a little goofy.
Yeah.
But I think he fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it rides that line perfectly of what you were just saying.
Well, on his topic for a moment, this is another example of the beautiful thing that I love about this movie is that it doesn't take any time to really expose anything that isn't in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Right? It does not take any time to be like, well, this is why they call him the Penguin, you know?
Yeah.
Nope. He's called the Penguin, and he hangs out at the Iceberg Lounge.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Also, the Iceberg Lounge is in this movie. Love it. It's great.
So anyways, but to backtrack for a moment, yeah, he's got these contacts in. I love that when you get the close-up of him taking out, his eyes are all fucked up, disgusting, bloodshot red because he's just up all night fighting people.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, and I love it.
I love that he's got the fucking paint around his eyes finally in a movie instead of just taking it off and the paint being gone.
Yeah. I love that he's replaying the footage, and that's how he gets the screenshot of the cipher without actually having to physically have the evidence and stuff. And I love that Alfred tries to crack the cipher for him over breakfast or whatever.
Yeah, I'd say overall, my least favorite character in this movie is Alfred, and I don't think he's that good, but I do like
lukewarm
them having that conversation where he's like, no, fuck this, you need to do Bruce Wayne stuff, and they get into that fight, and he's like, you're not my dad, and he's like, okay, fine, whatever. But I do like next morning he wakes up, Alfred's like, fuck, I figured this shit out for you here.
Yeah. Yes, I like that he figured some of the cipher out, but again, another point for Batman. I like that Alfred's like, it's only a partial cipher. He's like, no, I think it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's a great little bit of him being smart, being a detective. I like it. So we get the whole thing that he's like, I don't think it is a partial. I think this is everything. And then he runs that whole big cipher through his like fucking computer to run the program on like whatever the fuck, and he's able to determine that it says drive in big block letters out of like the 200 whatever the fuck. It just says drive, right?
Yeah.
And so then they go to, and by they I mean Batman and Commissioner Gordon, who, as someone said in that letter,
best part of this movie.
Gordon knocks it out of the park. Robert Pattinson knocks it out of the park. I love them together. I think they have a great relationship.
Those are some of my favorite parts of this movie.
It's just those two hanging out.
Hanging out with flashlights, going into some creepy hallways.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, they are checking out the mayor's many, many cars. A little nod to the corruption in the city. They are able to find which car is the one that was hinted to in the cipher because
Gordon goes, which car is it? Batman
and
goes,
he's like, probably the one with the thing that took a man's thumb off of his hand. And they go inside or whatever, and he's like, I'm looking for a USB drive, and Gordon's like, why? And he's like, thumb drive.
Because he's missing
because he thinks he's being funny. Yeah. And so yeah, then he they like use the thumb to like see what's on the USB, and the USB has some like young Russian like girl who's got a black guy, like pictures of her and the mayor leaving the Iceberg Lounge together. Gordon does this, but also he's like, oh shit, this thing just emailed all the pictures out to all the newspapers in Gotham or something like that, right? He's like, I'm gonna catch hell for this. Then I'm pretty sure our Batman follows the lead to the Iceberg Lounge for the first time.
And then he knocks on the front door.
Yeah, I think he knocks on the front door. Answers, and I'm pretty sure he's assuming, out of arrogance, because he's a young Batman, this is the way I'm going to read it personally, that they would be so afraid of him that they would just let him waltz on in. And if they didn't, he would just beat his way through.
Also, Tweedledum and Tweedledee open the door, which I love.
Yes, that is neat. So that's kind of how it runs down. He knocks on the door, and he says, you know who I am. And they say, ha, 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 and they start fighting. He kind of kicks the shit out of people on his way in, but he's also getting pretty overwhelmed until eventually the Penguin shows up, and he's like, hey, whoa, 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 a party and I wasn't invited? That's not what he said, but, you know.
Basically.
And they go have a conversation. I think the Batman's kind of like, tell me what you know. And the Penguin's doing a very cool, hey, Colin Farrell, you killed it. He's doing a great thing where he's like, hey, buddy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But what you're talking about, that just ain't my bag, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to point out, and I hope you do too, every time they do something in this movie that you've seen Batman do in comics for 100 years that you've never seen in a movie, him just standing in an office talking to the Penguin. Yeah. Chef's kiss. Love it.
He takes note of a young girl who comes in and is making kind of pretty observant, kind of eye contact. She seems like perhaps she's there with an ulterior motive. I just feel like Batman kind of picks up on like this is someone who doesn't seem like she belongs.
Yeah,
kind
because
of,
she's
right?
the least nonchalant person I've ever seen in
Yeah,
my life.
yeah. So he leaves, but he doesn't leave too far. He decides to keep an eye on her. He tails her. Turns out this is the Catwoman. Catwoman lives with the girl from the pictures with the mayor, right?
Yep.
And this is just another example of like Batman on the case, right? It's like watching a detective movie. Is he smart, so smart that he ends up doing this? No, he just kind of happens into it. It's like being in the middle of a mystery. He's like Kyle MacLachlan in Blue Velvet. But anyways, yeah, so he follows her back home. And then there's a point where he like intercepts her situation. Oh, right. Doesn't she that night go to get the money from the mayor's house? Yeah, she goes to break in and something right out of the comics, right? Catwoman doing all her little stuff to break in, and he's just like, that's illegal. And then they like fight a little bit.
This is when I went to the bathroom. I came in when the cop came in.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what happens is she like slowly breaks in. She pulls out all her little tools. She's like getting the thing open. She opens it up, and right before she grabs the money, he says something like, I don't think that belongs to you. I don't know what he says. He says something. And they kind of fight a little bit, but they're obviously neither of them are trying to hurt each other. And there's a point where the cop comes in, and that's when she kind of like lets her guard down because she realizes that like she kind of.
I love that the cop comes in and goes, "Now just check the one room. I'm gonna get out of here."
Yeah. And then they have a conversation where he basically says, "I'm pretty sure like, hey, I think your friend's in trouble," kind of a thing. We should go back to your house and talk about it because she needs to tell me what she knows, right? Because Catwoman says like, hey, my friend knows too much.
Yeah.
And Batman's like, well, I got to know what she knows. I can help her, kind of a thing. But by the time they get back, she's been taken.
Liam Neeson.
She's not there. Yeah, gone in 60 seconds.
I think the cringiest parts of this movie, the three I can think of, involve Catwoman, and two of them happen in this scene.
Really?
She starts drinking a glass of milk. Boo.
No, I don't mind that mainly because it's just cinema has an obsession with having their characters drink milk in the first place. Shagar drinks milk when he's hanging out in Llewellyn's movie trailer off the top of my head. I know there's a couple of scenes like in Inglourious Bastards. Christoph Waltz has a nice big glass of milk.
Because drinking milk is uncomfortable. You've seen a grown adult drinking a glass of milk.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're doing here, Chris. You and I know damn well she's drinking milk because she's a Catwoman.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I think it's like passable because it's like a marriage of like Hollywood trope plus this character is someone who's technically a cat or whatever. I wasn't that bothered by it.
And the second one that happens in this scene is him going,
you got a thing for cats?
You got a lot of cats. And she goes, I have a thing for strays.
Yeah.
And the third one is later, where Batman goes, you can't throw your life away. And she goes, it's fine. I have 9.
I like that retort mainly because I thought him saying "Don't throw your life away" was cringy. That was the cringy part for me. Her saying "I have 9." Because I did like something I really liked about the Catwoman character was her throwing it in his face all the time that like you must have grown up rich.
Yeah.
Because that's how a lot of the Batman character reads, honestly, in most Batman stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very entitled, very like narrow-minded, not a very open-minded person at all. Very hard-ass, and those are a lot of things that happen when you're,
got the boo-goo bucks.
Yeah. But anyways, so then from there, he's basically like, y'all, you got to go back into the Iceberg Lounge. Where are these contacts that go into my eyeballs every night? Hard sell, but all right.
They got electricity in them, so I can't really wash them. So just blow on them and get some dust off and pop them in.
But I did love that. I did love him, having a Batman gadget and having a little Batman plot and sending someone into the Iceberg Lounge.
I love him being in that like dilapidated apartment, looking at the computer, just in full costume. Very funny, but it's very Batman.
Yeah.
And also something I was thinking about in this scene, and I think about it every time they're outside the Iceberg Lounge, or anytime you see the city, or like through a window or something like that. Gotham feels huge, but it feels so cramped.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's something we should talk about because it's already shown up, right? So we were already talking a bit about how this Batman feels like a little bit of every Batman rolled into one. One of the other examples is just kind of Batman's suit, specifically the head, gives me big Tim Burton vibes. Mainly because it has that almost stitched nature to it, which honestly reminds me more of Catwoman's bag. But another reason being Halloween night in the opening with everybody with those weird like Tim Burton-esque like masks on and face paint, that reminded me of it. And then also just the way Gotham looks in general, especially that like kind of Times Square-y section that has all the neon.
It's got all the neon all over all the old-ass buildings.
Yeah,
it's great.
It looks very soundstagey. It reminds me of Tim Burton's Gotham. And also Gotham, feels huge. Feels cramped. It feels like a city where crime could happen and it would take a while for the cops to get there.
Yeah, it feels huge and it feels cramped because it feels like a set. always, and I love that, in the best way possible.
Yeah,
everything feels
because
like a set.
also it feels like this is the first Batman movie I've seen probably since Tim Burton's Batman, where like I feel like Gotham's a place.
Yeah,
not like they shot it in a city and then they're
Yeah.
calling it Gotham. It feels like a place.
Yeah, and it just like, again, to keep going up just about how the place feels. Whenever he's outside driving somewhere, or like when he jumps off that building and he does the paragliding thing, it all feels like, my blanket example for this type of feeling is always 2004's Hellboy. And I love it. I think it's great. I think more superhero movies should feel like Hellboy.
Well, yeah, there's also a degree to which like this gives me kind of like The Crow vibes.
Yeah.
Or like Blade or something. It's a very stylized movie. And stylized in a way that I feel like comic books haven't been for a while.
Yeah.
Because I feel like initially comic books were, because the 90s had just happened, they were still trying to like give it a little grit. But like they hadn't really worked all the kinks out, so it was just kind of like grit on top of stank.
Well, I think things got they got Hellboy and Crow-y, which were in their own way gritty, but they were still kind of fantastical. And then I think they were that way for the most part until The Dark Knight. And then The Dark Knight happened, and they're like, shit's gotta be dark. And then Marvel came around and went, hey, this isn't dark, but everything's gonna look exactly like this from now until the end of time.
Very stylized. I almost feel like, I could be wrong, but I almost feel like the sky could be red like the animated series, and I wouldn't bat an eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Visually, again, just to harp on that, like I just like even the edges of the shots were like a little out of focus and stuff.
Yeah, I'm such a sucker for it, but I like black and white. I love when a shot in a movie is just wildly out of focus.
Yeah.
Like, it's coming up here in a minute. She goes in, she talks to people, blah blah blah. Falcone's there.
Real quick, yeah. This is another great way that I just love in this movie more than a lot of other Batman movies I've seen. I feel like they do the mob. Not perfect, but well, a lot better. And also, like, the corruption in the city, a lot better, right? So you already got the mayor who has fucking 13 cars. But then also she's hanging out in the Iceberg Lounge, and he's like, what the fuck? That's the DA. What the fuck? That's the DA's assistant. What the fuck? That's the DA's secretary. What the fuck? Because, again, it's just one of those things where, like, you hear a lot of dialogue about how, like, oh, this whole city's corrupt. But, like, I don't know, to see them hanging out in a seedy place like this, or to see the mayor with his 13 cars. Anyways, go ahead.
I love when the DA gets in his car and the Riddler's strangling him or putting that device on his neck or whatever.
Yeah.
When it gets to that shot in the car, it is just insanely out of focus. And I don't know why I love that. I have such a soft spot for it, where it's like, this is so blurry and you can't really tell what's going on, but just the overall movement of what's happening, you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Then there's a point where I think Catwoman bumps into Carmine Falcone.
She does it in the club, before she leaves.
And is that when Batman gets all jealous?
He's like, how do you know him? How do you have a relationship with him?
Yeah. And she takes the contacts out, right?
Yeah.
And kind of ghosts him for a little while, right? So she's out, and he is out of contacts for a little while, right? And I think after that, we may... Oh, that's right. So she buddies up with the DA, kind of, because she's trying to squeeze some information out of him. She's uncomfortable in the situation, but Batman's egging it on, which is another great sort of like character trait that I feel like Batman has sometimes in the comics, especially a younger Batman, where he's not necessarily that interested in whoever he's putting in that situation because he's so worried about the greater good, like what he's going to get out of this. He's not that worried that he's putting her in danger because it's, you know, more about like getting to the heart of this situation or whatever. He leaves, and the Riddler's waiting in the car for him. Oh, yeah, Riddler gives him a bonkin'. So the next morning is when he goes to the funeral. And I love this because this is a scene that I had seen out of context, and I just hated it because I thought they were doing this, like, emo, brooding Bruce Wayne thing. But again, no, it's just he has no interest in being Bruce Wayne and playing that role. Yeah. He's just interested in being Batman. So him going to that funeral is a continuation of him being Batman. He's just going there as a detective to observe. That's why he's not talking to anybody. That's why he's looking around. That's why he's being observant. I think the mayoral candidate, Rial or whatever her name is, she talks to him and she's like, hey, your family is like very renowned for being for their philanthropists. You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even says anything to her. Because again, he's a big ghost. He's just a sort of a shell. He's literally only there to get information, right?
Yeah, and she goes, oh, hold on. Stay right here. I have to go talk to someone. We need to finish this conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, fucking see ya.
Yeah. You also get that Carmine Falcone thing, right, where like
Yep.
he establishes that Thomas and him have a history or whatever, and that he saved him with the, and he kind of throws it in Carmine's face because he's like, yeah, it's because my dad took the Hippocratic Oath, yada yada yada. Car comes barreling into the funeral, very Seven-ish scene. It's very gross. He's got the bomb on his neck. He's got the phone on his hand. And the bomb squad brings in the little R2-D2 robot to talk to the phone. Batman shows up eventually. The cops are like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's gonna get himself killed. Okay, long story short, Riddler answers the phone. He's like, I've got some riddles for you. Another moment from the trailer that I hated in the trailer, but then again, in the context of the movie, I'm like, I liked it. He's like, answer 3 riddles in 3 minutes and you're not going to die, kind of a thing, right? And first riddle is what's blind and is served cold and yada, yada, yada. He's like, oh, justice, right? He's like, oh, it's justice. Then the second one is...
I remember the riddle, but the answer is like, how much money do you get for protecting people or looking the other way? What's the price for your blind eye?
Yes. He's talking about a bribe, and he's like 10,000. And then the third one is basically, long story short, you got to tell me who the rat is, right? Yeah. He's like, nope, sorry, and then his head blows up. Batman's way too close to the explosion, and he gets knocked out. Although probably should have got some burns. Whatever. And when he wakes up, everybody's like, let's take the mask off a little bit, and he goes, oh.
I love it. I love him. I love him in the room with all the other cops, and they're all arguing, and then like every now and then a cop from behind him will go and try to take the mask off.
Just real quick. So I think this is the scene which leads to Gordon getting very close to him because he's like, I'll handle this, guys. Let me talk to him. I can reason with him.
I just love Jeffrey Wright in this movie, and I love his relationship with Batman because I love when Batman's trying to fight the cops or trying to take his mask off, and Gordon pushes him up against a wall, and he punches him in the chest. He goes, "This is not how you do this, man." Mm-hmm. It's so good.
Yeah, and he's like, he's also like, "You're gonna punch me in the face. You're gonna take my key. You're gonna lock that door right there. You're gonna go down the hallway. You're gonna take a right." That kind of thing.
Batman goes, "Who's the guy with the mustache and the broken nose?"
Yeah,
I beat him up 2 days ago at the Iceberg Lounge. And he gives him the skinny on that, and he's like, "Yeah, that's who he is." And Batman goes, "Okay," and then punches him.
Yeah, and then in my opinion, you get another very early Batman scene. It's kind of like a neat blending of like a Batman sometimes being able to zip around in the sky, and also Batman being a little afraid of heights. Exits out the window, puts on the glider suit, and fucking jumps out, and lands poorly, biffs it real hard, but got away.
I love all that. I love him getting up there. I love him being scared. I love him biffing it and fucking up. I just hate the glider suit.
Yeah, I don't. I thought it was a good way to
just make it the fucking cape, man.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Yeah, for some reason it felt like, you know me, I'm not like a big stickler for realism, but it felt really warranted for that scene. Like, just, I don't know. For some reason it felt like that. Yeah, it ended up working out perfectly.
You know what's gonna happen?
What?
In the Batman 2.
He'll probably end up with the glider cape thing. Yeah, he'll probably figure out the technology at a certain point. But yeah, that felt very much so like him thinking, maybe I might need to do this one time.
Yeah, honestly, my biggest takeaway from this movie is the Batman 2, The Return of Batman, might be my favorite Batman movie.
So far, it's this one. I definitely like this. Because I feel like this is also a movie that, like, something I remember seeing online that someone had said on Reddit that I didn't screenshot you, so I can't shout you out. But they talked about how, to this point, they've tried in movies to do the Batman Begins story. Yeah. But it's really just Batman trains on the mountain, and then he's a badass who can kick ass. But this is a Batman who frequently makes mistakes, who frequently can't handle the situation he's in, and is frequently not able to do things on his own. He needs other people. He needs Catwoman. He needs Jim Gordon. Yeah. He's not alone, crusader, some sort of solo, some sort of Han Solo. But anyway, so then he biffs it in the alley, and then I'm at a little bit of a loss.
No idea.
Well, let's just talk about the El Dorado thing.
Oh, yeah.
We also get, like you were talking about, the commissioner or whatever, or something like that, getting his face eaten by rats. They go down to the morgue. They're able to figure out that there's a cipher or whatever the fuck. And then it says, like, you are El Rada. I liked that a lot because it was very unclear. There's another comment where someone mentioned that the really nice thing, one of the ways that this movie relates to Seven, is that much like Seven, the detectives, Batman included, because he's not really, like you've mentioned before, at some sort of, like, he's pretty much on par with the cops. They're constantly playing catch up with the Riddler, right? And something that I mentioned to my dad after we'd seen it was like, my favorite part about that is that it could be Falcone, it could be the Penguin, or it could be Batman. You don't really know. I like that.
I do and I don't.
Yeah.
Because his name's not Falcon, it's Falcone.
But it's close enough. That's definitely close enough that it works as a riddle.
If you squint, it works, I guess.
I don't think if you squint, if it worked.
Okay.
Like, I feel like if you and I were in a room or whatever, and I had beef with someone named Falcone, I said, oh, the Falcon just got here, you would know what I'm talking about.
I just feel like it's like, you find out it's Falcone, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, from the rip, I thought he was on the table.
I was like that makes sense, but also, I couldn't have figured that out because you lied to me. But it's like what you're saying with the other riddles. It's in your opinion. Like it just that's the most real riddle in this movie. Right?
Yeah. But anyway, so they initially think it's the Penguin, and they go try to pick him up. And I love this scene. Colin Farrell gets to shine here because they're like, "You're El Rata Galata." He's like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?"
Oh no! What happens right before this, Chris?
What happens right before
How
this?
do they get the Penguin?
How do they get the Penguin?
Gordon, Batman, show up at a warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
They're making the drip.
They're making a drug deal.
Didn't like that. You didn't need to invent a drug for this world.
Yeah.
Just they're making coke. Okay.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't care about the drip.
Yeah.
All these drip heads.
I'm curious if that were a way to like make it a little more comic booky, because in the comics they sometimes do that, or if it was like a network thing where they were kind of like, hey, I don't know why, if it was like an artistic decision to be closer to the comics, or if it was like a censorship thing where they were like, this is already pretty dark. I don't know, but yeah,
it just reminded me of, have you seen Looper?
Yeah.
Everyone's doing those eye drugs. Mm-hmm. Every time someone said, oh, they're drip heads, I imagine in this world they put those drugs into their eyes.
It seems like soft sci-fi shit for sure.
Exactly. There's a fight here. He finds the Russian girl dead in the back of
in a
car.
bag. Yeah, that was pretty fucking dark.
Catwoman shows up to see that.
Yes. There's the money.
They come out. They start blasting.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You know what I forgot? I forgot the fucking Batman.
Yeah, you absolutely did. Yeah.
Glazed over there like a fucking donut.
They start blasting. Catwoman takes some money. She leaves. And they're like, oh, fuck. And they're still shooting at Gordon. And you just hear boom, 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 boom. And just the coolest Batmobile that's ever existed shows up.
Yeah. I would put it up there with, in my opinion, I really like the 1989 Batman one, which is basically synonymous with the animated series one, because it just kind of looks like a car. I mean, it's a weird looking car.
Oh, no. The 1989 Batmobile does not look like a car.
Basically.
Oh, no, it does not. It looks like a shoe with a bunch of fins on it.
I wouldn't say it looks like a shoe. I know exactly what it looks like. It's got that big circular thing in the front and stuff like that.
And like it pops open like a cockpit and it just holds one person. That's not what a car looks like, Chris. Anyway, I agree that the animated series one looks like a big long car, and I love it.
It's literally based off of that.
But it's not it.
Okay.
If they took that and went, what would this look like on a foot? That's what it is. And also, no, fuck you. The animated series came out after the 89 movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They literally share the same theme song. It's heavily influenced by 1989. That's what it was like greenlit based off.
Okay, well, what they probably did is they saw the 89 Batmobile and went, what if this didn't look like a shoe? But yeah, it's great. This one looks like a car to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just whips ass. It's just awesome. It looks like something he made in his garage, like the wingsuit and everything else we've been talking about. I thought some of the I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but just I couldn't tell what was happening for a lot of the car chase.
Yeah.
Like just cars crashing into cars. But I was enthralled by all of it. I loved watching the Penguin look in his rearview mirror, and then you see the Batmobile whip out from behind traffic and start coming to him. And I thought it was a little weird and a little cheesy when a ramp just so happens to fall in front of him for him to drive over. But god damn it, I love when the Penguin's like, I got you, and then it just comes out of the fire.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Very sick.
His Penguin's car flips 400 times, should be dead. Yeah. And then my favorite shot of this whole movie is Batman upside down walking towards him. Mm-hmm. So slow. It is so cool. Mm-hmm. And then they ruin it because it's him walking up and then his feet get to the car and you see the Penguin go, and then you see Batman go.
Oh, I love that shot. That's so funny.
I hated it.
I loved it.
It was one of those things where I was like, you didn't need to put that in here. And this movie could have been an extra 5 seconds shorter to get me out of here faster.
No, I loved it. But back on the topic of the car just real quick. I just don't like when it has a big version of his face in the front, and I don't like really when it's a tank. So that's more what I'm saying. Like when it just falls into the car category.
You
It's
said
like
the
a
other day
car.
you liked that Frank Miller's is a
Yeah,
tank.
I take it back.
Okay.
I was watching a clip of the episode of the animated series where they do a 5-minute segment of the Frank Miller thing. I don't really care for when it's a tank.
I like
when it's a car.
the only time I like it being a tank is this is the only time it's a tank in any of the movies. Is I like Christian Bale's Batmobile.
Yeah.
I like that
The tumbler.
it does just a bit more than an actual car can do.
Yeah.
So he can get the jump on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into he shoots him out in a little motorcycle. That's fun.
Yeah.
I like that. That's the
The
only,
transition is fun, yes.
But even those movies, when I watch that Batmobile driving up buildings and stuff like that, I'm just bored. I don't
Yeah,
really
it does.
care.
It also, it's a weird design. It doesn't look like something Batman owns to me.
I think it's fine though.
You know what
I think it fits in with the whole
Definitely.
militaristic look of
Yeah, they were
the Dark
trying to
Knight
definitely
movies.
go for that realistic militaristic thing, for sure.
And then they introduced the helicopter that looks like nothing that's ever existed.
Yeah.
That's the only other. I know we're going long, and I shouldn't be derailing about worst Batman movies.
No.
But it might be my favorite part out of all the Nolan movies
Mm-hmm.
that centers around Batman specifically. Is in The Dark Knight Returns, the first time you see Batman, because he does not show up for an hour and a half in that movie.
Yeah.
And it really steeps you into the world of Batman's been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
So even you as a viewer is like, I'm fucking 90 minutes in this movie. Batman's been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
And the cops are chasing Bane and all those guys after they rob the Wall Street of Gotham or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're in that tunnel chasing after them, and then all the lights go out, and you just hear that very iconic sound of, not iconic, but that very recognizable vroom of his motorcycle going by, and the cop going to the younger cop next to him going, "Oh, son, you are in for a show tonight."
Yeah.
And then like Batman like gets out of there and like turns, and like the helicopters around him, and you finally see Batman for the first time. It's like, oh fuck, that's so good.
Yeah, staple. That's another great staple moment. I was happy to see in the comics because that also happens in like Frank Miller's Batman to a degree. There's that scene where the old guy's like, he's got this one kid, and the kid's like, no, that's a vigilante. I gotta go handle this. He's like, all right, kid, if you wanna, but anyways, So yeah, we get the car chase, then the penguin thing, and yeah, that's when he shows up and he's like, "You're El Rata Delgado. You're the rat. You're the rat that that you ratted out Maroni." Because that's another thing we haven't discussed yet. There was a huge crime bust that happened recently, where like the Maroni crime family went down for being the biggest drug traffickers and sellers and yada yada yada.
And
in Gotham.
when they go to that warehouse, they're like, "Oh no, this shit's still up and running."
Yes, this shit's still up and running. And Penguin goes like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?" And he's like, "You're El Rata Delgado, rat with wings. It's what the Riddler left." And he's like, "You guys aren't that fucking smart, are you?" Kind of a thing.
You guys don't know that much Spanish.
Yeah.
It's La Rata. Am I the only one who knows the difference between L and La? I like that. I thought that was fun.
Then they drive off. They leave in the middle of nowhere. And you know what I love? He fucking walks like a penguin.
Yeah.
They make the penguin walk like a penguin.
No, they don't. Before they leave him there, they go, "Okay, hold on a second. This is a URL." And they turn around and Batman opens up his Bat laptop.
Oh, yeah, and he goes to
www.ratadelgado or whatever.
which is a website in real life.
Oh, cool.
That asks you riddles. You can solve them.
And
then it'll show you a scene from the movie that I think was not included in the movie or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then they talk to the Riddler a little bit. What does the Riddler say to them?
They have a little conversation, basically. I think it was like an open channel for him to conversate with the Riddler. So he says something like, "The rat with wings? You mean like a penguin or whatever?" And he's like, "Oh, not quite." And they have that little conversation.
And then, he gives him a riddle, and the answer is an orphan. So he realizes...
Oh, yeah.
He has to go to the orphanage.
Yes. I also like that the penguin gets that whole like, "Hey, come back here and fix this" moment.
Yeah,
he's like, "Wait, you guys can't leave me here."
Yeah. And then they go to the orphanage, which rips.
Yeah, I like the orphanage.
I
And
love
they kick
him
open the door and they're like, "Drop heads."
I didn't like that, but I liked, because I don't like the fake drug.
Yes.
But I love Gordon and Batman with their flashlights just walking through, going places.
This scene gave me Batman Beyond Return of the Joker's vibe when they're hanging out in that like a decrepit place and
Absolutely.
the Joker's playing those family videos of like, "Oh, he was a hard nut to crack, but eventually I got out my nutcracker and we did it."
Yep. And Ave Maria's playing very quietly in the background. And It's great. And then they see the thing, and you think about Thomas Wayne.
Yes, this was a mild problem I had with the movie. So the conceit is that Thomas Wayne paid for a reporter to get killed because the reporter was going to tell Gotham that his wife's mom, because his wife, he's married to an Arkham, his wife's mom like killed the whole family or something like that. And then like Martha Wayne grew up in like Arkham Asylum because she was crazy and stuff like that. And there was like one other thing that happened.
Yeah.
What was the other thing?
No,
that
it was
happened?
just those two things.
Just those two things, yeah.
And
those are super embarrassing things. And I can understand people online talking about how like, yeah, he didn't do it because he thought it was gonna like ruin his mayoral campaign. He did because his wife probably couldn't handle the emotional stress of all that coming out.
And he wanted to protect his son
yeah.
as well. And yeah, that's just something that got me with the Riddler's plan, where he's like, another Wayne covering up, another politician covering up his corruption and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. This is just very personal family stuff that a reporter was going to try to get out there. But I thought, from like the trailers and everything I'd seen, I thought kind of what they were driving at is, it's a Batman story I really like. It's the Telltale Batman game.
Yeah.
In the first one, it is Batman. It's everything you love about this movie. I think you should play it. I think you'd like it.
This movie's also a lot like the Arkham games, I feel like. This is like an Arkham movie come to life.
Here and there, yeah. But you know that game is very early Batman. There's a lot of Bruce Wayne in it, so it's different that way. But like the big conspiracy uncovers, spoilers, is that the Waynes, his parents, were awful, awful, awful people who were also wrapped up in all this corruption, and they're not who he thought they were. And so I thought this movie was gonna do that, and it didn't. And I was a little bummed out. But also, that's not what this movie is, so I'm not gonna hold it against it.
Then we get Batman basically putting together that he's like, oh my god, Bruce Wayne is the next victim, right?
Yeah.
So you get that scene where he's like just driving home super fast, calling. No one's picking up because everybody's dealing with the police. Because when he finally gets through, he says, something bad's about to happen. She goes, Mr. Wayne, something bad has already happened. I've been trying to reach you. And that really hit me because he's like driving home. He's like, ah! Like screaming and stuff. Which is like so like, I don't know, like almost like adolescent boy, like anime, like something that would happen like an anime. Like it's such a heightened version of like reality in a sense, but it worked.
It bothered me just a little bit.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah.
And Buffalo Bill hears the doorbell ringing upstairs, and you're like, you just see the shot right before that of the SWAT ringing the doorbell. So you're like, oh, okay, they're at his house. And then when he opens the door, it's Clarice ringing the doorbell. It's like, oh, okay. When they keep showing Alfred opening the mail and the phone is just ringing and ringing and ringing, so you think it's Bruce trying to call him, but he's not picking up for some reason. I was like, where's that phone coming from? The whole time it was happening, I was like, bro, you're the butler. It's for you. You should be picking this up. And it felt like, was it just they were playing the sound of the phone ringing now on the maid's end over that? Was that what was happening? I don't know. It got me a little bit, but all in all, I'm fine with it.
In that shot, you also get a huge William Shakespeare bust. Like the 1966 Batman.
Cool. I didn't see that. Nice.
So then that happens, and at that point, I think, does he go to see Alfred at the hospital and Alfred is not awake? Or
no, he talks to Falcone first.
Yeah. So at that point, he decides, because him and Falcone have a relationship, that he's going to go knock on the Iceberg Lounge's door and say, hey, I'm Bruce Wayne here. I'm here to talk to the Penguin. Works out for him. Goes to talk to Falcone. And Falcone to Taro. Woo! I like him.
Woo!
I like him.
Oh, never mind.
But anyways, they talk, and he's basically like, hey, did my dad pay you to kill the reporter? And he's like, hey, kid, you know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but he did. And also, don't hold it against him. He told me to shut the reporter up, and when the reporter wouldn't shut up, there's only one choice at that point, you know? You kind of got to do what a man's got to do when a man's got to do it, you know? And then he's like, oh, God, you know, that's awful. And then he's like, yeah, and then I think Maroni killed your dad or whatever, so we're all good still. And he's like, okay, he's tight. And then, I think immediately after, then he goes to talk to...
It's my least favorite thing about Bruce Wayne in this movie is he tells him that, and he goes, well, that must be the truth. And then he goes and talks to Alfred, and he goes, that's not what happened. And he goes, well, that must be the truth.
Yeah. It definitely feels weird because it's like bumped up to each other. I don't think it's that big of a deal, just because basically what happens is like Falcone tells him that, and he goes, okay, I'll buy that, because just a second ago I didn't even think my dad was the kind of guy who would pay someone to murder somebody. and you seem like you're shooting straight to me. And then he immediately goes talk to Alfred, and of course, whatever Alfred said would trump what Falcone had to say.
But my thing is, like you said, they're bumped up right next to each other. He has no time to think about it. He just goes to Alfred and goes, shakes him in his coma and goes, wake up! And he wakes up and he goes, you lied to me.
They have a nice little talk. I feel like I struggle usually with any time that Batman is outwardly emotional. It ends up being a little uncomfortable, but I guess that's kind of the point. He's not comfortable, so I'm not comfortable. But yeah, when he finally like lets it down, he's like, listen, Alfred, you were a dad to me. Yeah. You were the dad I did not have, you know. It's very sweet. It also made me teared up, but also, like I said. Then...
he looks up out the window in the hospital and sees the bat signal. And he goes to the tower, and him and Gordon show up at the same time. And he goes, I thought it was you. I thought it was you. And they go up, and it's Catwoman.
It's Catwoman, and she has Mustache Man from the Iceberg Lounge, because she's like, yo, dude, I have a fucking voicemail from the night, from my friend Anika, and it's this scumbag. He's the one that killed her. He did it. And then Batman's like, don't throw your life away like this or whatever. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, it'll make you know better or whatever. And then, eventually she ends up kicking him down. And she says the 9 lives line and stuff like that. I like this scene, as we've mentioned before. Catwoman throws the privilege thing in her face. That's great.
I love in this scene when they figure out it's Falcone. And Jeffrey Wright goes, you tell me Falcone's the rat? It's so good. Just like, it's the most he animates in this movie at all, with just the high eyebrow. And he's telling me Falcone is the rat.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, I like how that is all all plays out. I feel like that's a decent reveal. I didn't really fully understand like the rat situation until all the pieces fell into play, but it totally makes sense that if you were a rival gang member who wanted a bigger piece of the pie, why not rat out the other guy and become the only one or whatever? I thought that played out pretty well. I don't know at this point if it's fully out there or not. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but then it becomes that, or is it not until he talks to Riddler and Arkham when he's like, what it is the renewal fund, and it was supposed to be it was supposed to be, what's the word? A charity thing, right? So like there's no government eyes on it, and so then all of the corrupt politicians figured they could just start taking whatever they wanted.
Mustache Man tells them that, yes.
Mustache Man tells them that.
I believe so.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yep, that's where that all comes out. It all comes out that that's where all the money is kind of going, and that's why. And I love this too. It's another example of the movie showing is they keep talking on the news, just like The Dark Knight Returns, stuff like that, about like how like crime just keeps going up, and murder's on the rise, and like drugs and this, and there's supposedly this renewal plan, that's full of all this money that's supposed to make the city better, and yet it keeps falling farther and farther down and stuff like that. And I don't know, it definitely lends credence, in my opinion, to like how someone like the Riddler gets to the point they get to, because honestly, it's only a huge leap once he starts killing people. The Riddler is understandable until that point. And that's how you make a good villain, a la one of my favorite Spider-Man villains in recent memory, the Vulture. Because his whole thing is like, hey, I'm just taking what's mine. The government fucked me, so now fuck them. I got a family to feed, bitch. Yeah. And that's great. And what's the Riddler's thing? The Riddler's thing is, fuck these privileged, rich, white people who are helping us by taking the money that's supposed to help us and helping themselves to it. But then he starts murdering people, and it's a little like, oh, well.
It's a lot like, oh, well.
Yeah.
But then she leaves, and he's like, Gordon, go do whatever. I have to go after her. She's going to kill Falcone.
Fuck off.
And he goes, fuck off, do your cop thing. And again, I love all the gadgets in this movie. Batman just suctions something to the side of the wall with a zip line on it and starts running down the side of the building. Yeah.
I like when she makes it to the Iceberg Lounge. After she plays coy and all that kind of stuff goes down, when the lights are out, that whole sequence.
So good.
Love that.
I love, the
great.
Elevator opens. It's very quiet. They go in there. Batman's just up on the top. When he comes out and he's beating him up, and like you only see it when someone starts shooting. That's great.
It's a great shot.
I've seen it in a few other movies, and I love it every time it happens. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure the first time it ever happened was in Kick-Ass, and Hit Girl does it. And so every time I see that, I just go, I guess you can't not think of Hit Girl right now.
We totally glossed over the fact that the Catwoman also has a pretty interesting story. I like that her mom was a dancer at the Iceberg Lounge or whatever, and that Falcone knocked her up, and she's this bastard child. Pretty classic story. It kind of reminds me of like that kind of like, you killed my father, prepare to die kind of a thing. Like just that tried and true revenge story of like, usually it's like a guy who's in that seat, who's the bastard son of somebody, right? So it's kind of a neat role reversal there, or gender reversal, right? Where she gets to have a similar story, a similar arc to that which is usually reserved for male heroes.
Something that bothered me about Catwoman in this movie, it's raining a lot in this movie.
It is raining quite a bit.
And she's outside quite a bit.
Cats hate to get wet. No, I'm
They
kidding.
hate to get wet. But she has the very cold ski mask that has the cat ears on it.
Yeah.
But every time she was outside and it was raining, I leaned over to Elton at one point. I'm like, that thing has to weigh 10 pounds now, and tomorrow it's just going to stink.
Oh, and something else I almost totally forgot to just like grab a cup, like 3 different things, like Gotham feeling like a real place. People like the Penguin and the Catwoman kind of just being like, we don't have to get into it too much. One of the things that I love about this movie just feels so lived in, like a real place, yada, yada, yada. This comment from Reddit user 2x Noodle, 2 times Noodle, kind of that kind of a thing, right? 2x
Noodle.
I'm going to quote directly. I've always liked thinking of Bruce Wayne and Batman as separate characters, and as someone who likes seeing lots of Bruce Wayne normally, I like how Bruce's absence affects this story. We see Alfred tell Bruce that he needs to be more involved with managing the Wayne legacy, but Bruce doesn't care. Then, later on, we see that Bruce's neglect of managing the Wayne affairs is what results in his father's funds being open to being acquired through crime and corruption, fueling the Falcones and the Penguin, and also bringing about the Riddler. Gotham needs the man who's able to balance both being the Batman and Bruce Wayne. And that's a great example. If you were more interested in being Bruce Wayne, so again, it's a great. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's a great example of how a good story, quote unquote, it's not the only story to tell, but a good story often has the consequences be the result of your main character's action, right? Whether it be him choosing to do something or him not doing what he's supposed to, right? And so, yeah, that was just a great example. I didn't even think about that when I was watching the movie. So had to shout out 2 times Noodle, because, that's a great, great. Because I was obviously picked up on the fact that Bruce Wayne's absent from this movie. Yeah. Because Bruce Wayne has no interest in being Bruce Wayne. So, yeah, you're right. Her stinky, stinky hat.
She's got that real stink hat, but she decides not to wear it.
Batman's suit got a stank, too.
Oh,
There's no way he's washing it ever. How do you wash it?
None of it's cotton,
Yeah. Just thinking about it. So then she does not kill Falcone because Batman's like, this is not the way.
It's a nice little line that he has that I like, that I don't remember. Give me 2 seconds. What does he say to her to get her not to shoot it?
Something about it makes us no different than him.
No, not even that. It's something along the lines of like,
Did Catwoman's mom kill herself because of what her situation was?
No, he strangled her to death.
He strangled her.
He says it while he's strangling her. He goes,
"Yeah,
oh, I gotta do to you like I did to your mother."
Yeah. Love that. I loved all that. I thought Catwoman had I liked all of her shit. I really did. I liked her whole story. I liked that.
He says something.
Also, this time, Batman's his way into the Iceberg Lodge.
Yes, he says something along the lines of like, "Don't take your life with his."
Oh yeah,
something like that.
Yeah,
I thought it was nice. So that was a nice way of.
That was a very nice way.
It was a nice little Confucius Batman line. I liked it. Nice.
It really is, because I think about that all the time. People always wanted to commit a revenge kill, but then for the rest of your life, you have to live with the fact that you killed a guy, and that can't be emotionally good, even if it is a justified kill. Like that's something you live with for the rest of your life. Like I really don't think. Emotionally you can handle that, even if it was like the best of circumstances.
Yes,
exactly. I think that's an emotionally devastating thing.
I think it was a nice little way for Batman to say it in words in an order I've never heard before.
Yeah. So anyways, Batman then brings the rat into the light. You get that scene we talked about a second ago, which was a nice homage to like your usual shot of Batman underneath the light holding his parents. And you get like this weird like JFK assassination like moment where like Penguin pulls out his gun and everybody thinks Penguin shot him, but Batman's like, no, up there, and you can see like the sniper rifle.
Yeah, I did not like though when they're bringing Falcone out.
Yeah,
and he's like, oh, I run the city. I got all the cops paid off. Yeah. And they go, not all of them. And he opened the door and he goes, see, there are some good cops. I'm like, boo.
Bootlicker.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair. I like that they go up there, and this is another movie that seems straight out of Seven. They're like, oh, God, look at all these like notebooks written in ciphers, have no idea what's going on here. It's weird, it's nasty, it's gross up in there. And I also love that a woman, not a woman, but someone comes in and is like, hey, detective, you got a lady downstairs, says she saw a guy leaving this building, he ran 2 blocks down to this diner, he's sitting there alone, you know? You get Paul Dano at the counter, sitting from behind, and everybody's like, hands up, hands up, hands up. He slowly puts them up. They arrest him. And then is it almost immediate that Batman goes to Arkham? Or for all intents and purposes, is that what happens, or what do we get?
I think you're missing... Right before that happens, Batman puts his hand into the cage with the bat.
Oh, right, which is a moment I really liked,
yes.
Right? There's a little bit of hesitation, but for the most part, he just puts his hand up in there. He finds that letter.
Don't remember what the letter says, though.
Neither do I. This is a movie I would like to see multiple times. I like this movie quite a lot.
But then, for sake of time, yeah, let's say he goes to Arkham,
which is something I love. I can't remember another movie where he's explicitly, other than like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I think there might be some time. No, I don't think he goes to Arkham, but you definitely see like Mr. Freeze in Arkham and shit. Yeah.
Before that, they find his computer with a video called The Truth that they can't get into because it's password protected.
Oh,
and
right.
There's that nice moment with Gordon that
there
you
is.
like that I don't really remember.
Yeah, because basically I think what's going on is that there's a bunch of pictures of like Bruce Wayne and shit like that everywhere. And he turns to Gordon and says, I think I'm the last target. And then he answers the phone or whatever, and he's like, oh, you know, fucking the Riddler's asking for you or whatever. But there's just something about the way that Commissioner Gordon's looking at him and then Batman says, you're a good cop, that makes me think personally that between all the pictures on the wall and him saying, I think I'm the last victim, that's Jim Gordon being like, oh, it's for you, and him going, you're a good cop. At least that's how I choose to interpret it.
Okay,
I choose to interpret it as James Gordon picked up on what the fuck Batman just said. Batman just said, I'm Bruce Wayne, basically. Yeah. You know what I mean? At least I hope that's what that was. It really felt like that to me in the movie theater. I've seen a lot of people ask online. I don't really remember what the general consensus is, but I know that leaving the movie theater, I was like, I feel like that's probably what's going on there.
And then they go to Arkham.
Which is awesome. I love that. That's something that happens in the comics. The first thing that comes to mind, obviously, when I think of Batman just marching into Arkham is the Killing Joke. That's how it opens.
Yeah. But only problem with this movie...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. My only problem with this scene, I think it's very good. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about it in a second, but there's no way you can see Batman interrogate somebody in a movie and not think of him in The Dark Knight with Joker in that room.
Interesting. I didn't think of that. But yeah, I totally get what you mean. That is absolutely warranted. That's an amazing scene.
Yeah.
But it didn't come to mind.
But besides that, I do like when he's in there and the Riddler's talking. He's like, oh, Bruce Wayne this, Bruce Wayne that. And Batman's kind of like not looking at him and seems kind of shrunken down in the corner in the shadows.
Because I straight up thought the Riddler thought he was like knew who he was. I thought that was what this whole movie was building to, was like how long until the Riddler drops that bomb publicly. Like that's what I thought, like the big thing that I thought that was gonna be the biggest. That was like gonna be the cherry on top, almost like the most recent Spider-Man. How everybody knows Peter Parker is Batman. I thought that was the direction this movie was going in.
But I can't remember exactly what the Riddler says. But once it's revealed that he doesn't know they're the same person, Batman's like, oh fuck, and like kind of straightens up and just starts marching toward the glass.
Yeah. But Paul Dano just puts on a fucking...
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an acting clinic. He bodies this shit.
And this is the part where he kind of tells him, like, oh no, I thought me and you were in on this together. And Batman's like, what are you talking about?
I don't remember exactly what it happens, but then you get that line where he's like, boy, you really aren't as smart as I thought you were.
Great, love
Such
it.
a good line. And that point where, like, he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're insane. You need help. And he's like, what? No. Yes, so good. Ugh, Paul Dano.
Yeah, great.
Insane. Great.
So good.
Beautiful scene. And yeah, we've already talked about it before, but yeah, it's a great scene that again illustrates that thin blue line. No, the thin line between Batman and his villainous counterparts, right? That's the cornerstone of a lot of great Batman stories, is how you're just one bad day away from being the Joker, or whatever it is, right? Most Batman villains are a very specific aspect of what makes up the whole of who Batman is, right? Like a hyperbolic version of that. So anyways, then he says, hey, we'll get to watch it all together. There's something bigger coming, baby. And he's like, damn, there must be something I missed. So he goes back to the fucking apartment, and he's just like, yeah, damn, what the fuck could it possibly be? And privileged white boy Bruce Wayne is like looking at this like silver thing, and like some cop comes in. He's like, "Hey, that's my uncle's a carpenter. That's a Tucker." And he's like, "Oh, carpenter." And rips up the carpet.
Which I love. He does not rip up the carpet. He uses it to rip up the wood next to the carpet.
Yeah.
So he's not even using it when it's for what it's for.
Yeah, the only thing that's weird about that is like, okay, so like was the Riddler like redoing his carpet every time? Like, did he even have to use it? Like, it could have also just been a symbol for like, hey, lift the carpet up.
No, I think it's the opposite. It's a pusher is when it does. So it pushes the carpet underneath like the edges of the wall and stuff like that.
Oh, I gotcha.
So the reason he has it is because he put that carpet back after he drew the map.
Yeah, I gotcha. I don't know enough about carpentry. And basically underneath it is this plan for him to have placed like 12 vans full of explosives. Very Fight Club. Just all over everywhere that's keeping water out of the city. And yeah, this is a great way for the movie to end, in my opinion, because it's a very good way to really push Batman over that edge of, I can't just beat up people in alleys for this city.
Yeah.
Worse things are going to happen. And that doesn't help. What I do doesn't help, right? So yeah, Batman's entirely out of his element. Yeah, so that's going on. Also, the Joker, not the Joker. Also, the Riddler has like 500 online followers who are also going to don the mask. Which, again, being the other side of Batman and having the context of 100 years of Batman stories, there are a lot of Batman stories, like Batman Incorporated or whatever, right, where like Batman outsources the job to a bunch of teenagers who just put on masks, and they're also Batmen or whatever, and Batwomen. And so there's the Riddler literally employing the same tactics, right? And it's also interesting because so frequently Batman's whole ideology and belief system is compared to the right and the hard right and stuff like that. And, things like... a lot of religious extremists, a lot of terrorists do very similar things. They have very cultish behavior, right? And so here's the Riddler kind of doing the same thing that Batman kind of gets a pass to do because he's doing the right thing, right?
And I love when you find out that the Riddler's just an online extremist, and you see that video of him just sitting in that chair with the mask on. He goes, "Hey guys, so today's the day."
Yeah, I feel like there were like 4 really good laughs in this movie. The thumb one got a laugh from the whole theater. I got a little smug out of it. That was probably the best one. The Riddler going, "Hey guys," that was great. Gordon with his whole like, "You're gonna punch me in the face," like, that was good. And there's probably 1 or 2 other ones I can't remember offhand.
The only laughs I heard in the theater were anytime Batman did almost anything. It was so unbelievable that me and Elton were just giggling to each other the whole time. Like when he runs down the side of that building, me and Elton were just dying. It was so good.
So they are specifically armed and ready to take out the woman who was just won, I think, the mayor, right? She's become the mayor. Rial is her name. And she's trying to get people into the arena to save them, right? Because she actually has a great line. She's one of my favorite lines in this movie. It pairs very well with Catwoman's thing about privileged white people or whatever. She says, "That's the problem with the city. Everybody runs when it's time to do something or whatever." And that was really cool. I liked that a lot. And Batman shows up, starts beating up the terrorists some. Catwoman's there.
Ass.
Yeah. James Gordon's also trying to help.
Jim. It's correct, James Gordon, but every time you say it, I think you're saying James Corden.
Oh. And he beats up one of them, and then I think there's a point where he's getting someone's getting the best of him, and he shoots himself with some venom.
He gets shot in the chest point blank.
Yeah.
Because this whole movie, I'm like, I guess he's just bulletproof. But then when someone right in front of him shoots him with a shotgun, he's like, oh, I am down for that count.
Yeah. But he gets all venomed up, and then he takes that guy out, and I think that's the guy he unmasks, and he's like, "Who are you?" Whatever. He's like, "I'm Vengeance," which, for the record, that's what he's been referring to himself as the whole movie, if I haven't mentioned it already.
Yeah, I love that right before that when he gets the venom in him and he just starts going sicko mode on this guy. Just starts beating the shit out of him, and Gordon has to stop him because he's like, "You're going to kill this man. You need to stop him." He's like, "Oh, geez, sorry."
Yeah. Then I don't totally understand what happens. Like that electrical line falls from the sky, and he like grabs it and then cuts it off, and then falls into.
Because it's gonna fall into the water and electrocute everybody if it like falls a little bit more. So he cuts it so it's not. Also, his little bat in his chest is a knife. So he cuts that so it's no longer electric.
That's kind of what I thought was going on, but it just happens kind of quick and weird.
Yeah, I like that.
Not in a bad way. It's just like I was a little confused.
I like that shot though when he falls in the water and there's that cop car nearby, so everything's just red.
Yes, I love that.
Blue.
Yeah, I love he goes over and like frees people from the wreckage, and
No one wants to take his hand.
Yeah, they're a little apprehensive at first, but then the boy does.
Yeah. I love it feels like such an easy move, but I just love the visual of Batman holding that flare and everybody behind him following him.
That's one of my favorite things. Like that's one of the reasons why I like personally like Batman Begins so much is the third act being something where it's like powers out in the city. And just anytime there's crisis and Batman has to deal with it. I like that so much. For some reason, that's so interesting to me. Yeah, and I just love that. Like, it's almost like, Batman helping at Katrina or something. Like just something about him with that flare just leading like 4 people through the water. That's really powerful imagery for some reason. And then the movie kind of ends with like it's pretty bittersweet. I mean, where do you go from there, kind of a thing? The flood has happened.
I love how he looks when he comes out and it's like sunrise and he's just all dirty and stuff like that, and just him in the daylight, like seeing Batman in the day looks good on screen finally for once. I think it was very nice.
But yeah, it's sort of one of those things where it ends in like this bittersweet place where it, in a sense, like Batman has not met the challenge set out for him. So it's kind of almost like a Batman doesn't totally prevail story, because it's kind of like
almost not at all. No.
Yeah, because it's basically a coming of age story. It's basically like something that like someone put very nicely in a Reddit comment was like, they were like, one of my favorite aspects of like this being a year 2 Batman is that means that he's been doing this for 2 years and still hasn't figured out what Batman is.
Yeah.
Right. By the end of the movie, he does, but he did it for 2 years without even realizing what it was. Right. So yeah, like I said, city got fucking flooded. I mean, what do you do next? I mean, someone pointed out in a comment that this could be a really good opportunity to do something like No Man's Land.
Okay.
That'd be interesting. But yeah, I'd be very curious to see how like the next movie opens up, because honestly, this gave me like big first movie in a new Star Wars trilogy energy. It really did feel like there's a larger story to be told here. It stands alone, in my opinion. Like, this is a nice snapshot, the same way that like Year One is or something. Yeah. But if greenlit to do more, which spoilers, he has been. I could see this easily being a part of a larger trilogy. It doesn't feel like sequel baity like a lot of movies are these days. The only thing that does is that very last scene.
It happens while shit's getting flooded.
Oh, really?
And he's like, "Oh, my plane, blah, 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 and I feel like a fool." And the guy next to him in the cell goes, "What's wrong with being a clown?"
Yeah. The worst part of this movie for me, in my opinion, was that Paul Dano laughs better than the Joker does.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
He's got a better crazy laugh than the Joker does.
He really do.
I'll be interested to see what happens with the Joker. My only real hope is that he plays sort of a Penguin-ish role in the next movie.
Okay.
I would like him to perhaps be in Arkham the whole time, perhaps be someone that the Batman consults at Arkham, and then maybe you could end that movie with sequel bait where like he's broken out.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That'd be an interesting way to take it, in my opinion. But yeah, just that kind of a thing where he's like around talking to people, but he's not really like doing anything big.
Yeah.
Probably almost like what they tried to do with him when Jared Leto did him. Not to say that I didn't see that, but like from what I heard, it didn't really sound like he was like the main guy. He just showed up for a couple scenes.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I didn't see that, but something like that, where like he only shows up a little bit. Like you set him up as a character so you can use him later, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, then it rolls into its ending, and its ending is basically like Catwoman being like, "Yeah, dude, I am a normal person. There's nothing in Gotham for me right now.
Yeah.
Gotham is flooded. I got to get out of here. It's beyond saving. So me as Catwoman doesn't work. Also, it's flooded, so there's nowhere for me to live where I have a job. So I'm going somewhere else. Bye."
Yeah, and Batman gets on his motorcycle that has 2 big points coming out of it, and he goes, "You get it? Because it's like my head." And then they drive for way, way too long. This movie's already pushing 3 hours. I don't need to watch them ride on motorcycles for 2 minutes. And it also feels so weird because they say goodbye. And it's one of those things where you say goodbye to someone and you go, "Oh, we have to walk the same way." So, and they do that, and then it ends on such a fart of a shot to me, in my opinion. You just see him looking backwards on his motorcycle. He goes, "Ugh," and then it's over.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a little disappointed by in this movie. Besides all the other things I said I was disappointed by.
Yeah.
It's me doing something I hate when people do. I'm like, "Oh, if this movie was, I wish this movie was this." And it's like, well, no, it's not that. Appreciate it for what it is. I'd like to see like a. Are you familiar with the Court of Owls?
That's something that Robert Pattinson and Mr. Reeves are very interested in perhaps dipping into.
Yeah, I don't see that working after this.
Neither do I. That's why I like someone saying No Man's Land next.
Yeah, because I mean, not even
because after the flood thing, it seems like
even if this movie ends without the flood,
yeah,
it feels like it would be just the same story again, but taken up a level. Because the Court of the Owls are just an Illuminati that has been running Gotham since the 1800s.
Yeah.
And so if you did that, it'd be like, okay, well, there's more going on behind the scenes than you think there was, which is what this movie was.
That's fair. But yeah.
Court of the Owls, just a quick side note. If you're ever thinking about reading any newer Batman stuff, fucking newer, it's probably like 10 years old at this point, 10, 15 years old. But it does my favorite thing that I've ever seen a comic book do. We can cut this part out because there's nothing and we're over 2 hours right now. There's a part where Batman like finds where the Court of the Owls are, and they put him in this maze, and he's like been there for days, and he stumbles upon a fountain, and he's like, I cannot drink from this fountain. There's no way it's not poison. And then he gets so dehydrated where he's like, I have to drink from this fountain, and it just like fucks him up. It's basically like LSD or something like that, and so he's just tripping the whole time going through this maze. And as you're reading it, you flip to the next page and all the panels are sideways. It's like, all right, so you have to read the comic sideways, and you flip it, and you keep flipping it, and then it flips again, so you have to read the comic upside down. It's just very neat. I just love gimmicky stuff like that where I have to flip this book while I'm reading it. It's cool. Any final thoughts about the Batman, Chris?
My final thoughts would just be that there's so many different little things, but 1, looks great. 2, sounds great. 3, it's like the most Batman-y thing I've ever seen on screen. 4, it's an acting clinic. My God, so many great actors in this. Zoe Kravitz.
Yep. Jason
Wright? Is that his name? Jeffrey Wright. I know a Jason Wright from way back when. Jeffrey Wright. Paul Dano's my boy. Robert Pattinson. John Turturro. Colin Farrell. Damn. Is there anybody who didn't hit it out of the park in this movie? Other than that, it's for me probably gonna be put it in the A range. That's where I'll put it.
I think this movie was good. I think it was very good. Like you said, best looking Batman movie I've ever seen. Performances are really good.
I will also say it's fucking 3 hours.
It is way too long. I think there are, like I said, performances are great. I unfortunately don't think the actors have enough to work with for them to be outstanding. But there are parts of this that are like the Batmobile, where Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon, where it's like, this is the absolute best version of this I've ever seen.
Fun fact real quick. Anthony Hopkins is on screen in The Silence of the Lambs for 24 minutes.
Ooh.
Which I think is the shortest amount of time that anyone's ever been on screen and won an Oscar for.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
You were saying this is definitive James Gordon Batmobile.
Definitive Gordon Batmobile. The look of it, again, a lot of it, the way Gotham looks, just the best I've ever seen from a Batman movie.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sorry, overall, it just kind of falls flat for me.
Yeah.
I might have been hyped up from AEU telling me about it, but
yeah.
probably even more.
I came in busting in.
Yeah.
I came in that night hot.
But probably even more, like I was telling you before we started this, that first Batman trailer, that 2 minutes, is the best Batman movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's how I feel about this one.
So I was just, again, I'd like to go see it again with fresh eyes, with fresh expectations. But I think overall, I'm probably
with your enthusiasm curbed.
Yes, exactly, Larry David. I'm going to give this a C+.
All right, fair enough.
Anyway, so yeah, Batman, newest movie to be out. It's the youngest baby of all the movies. Want to talk about a really, really, really old movie?
You mean like Akira?
Chris, I'd like to talk exactly about Akira. Have you seen Akira before we watched it the other day?
When I was a little baby, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, I tell the story frequently. When I was growing up, my parents weren't that particular about what I was allowed to watch, but this is the first movie I have a memory of being told to look away from.
Oh, yeah, no, my parents, my parents kind of let me watch anything too when I was a kid, except for Ed, Ed, and Eddie and Ren and Stimpy, and I never understood it. Like, I was watching, like, South Park and shit, but I couldn't watch Ed, Ed, and Eddie or Ren and Stimpy. Then years later, I asked my dad, and it was because Ren and Stimpy ended up becoming, like, an adult show on Spike TV, I believe, and I think he just didn't want me to get confused with that, but also, I was watching South Park, and then he said he remembers seeing an episode of Ed, Ed, and Eddie where they were making fun of a mentally handicapped kid, which I don't think ever happened in Ed, Ed, and Eddie. He might have just, like, saw something out of context, but he was like, nah, it's not something I wanted you watch it when you were a kid. I didn't want to put any ideas in your head. And I was like, oh, that's very admirable. But also, that's almost all of South Park. So.
Otherwise, I know that this is like the big anime breakout in the western side of our planet that we live on, our beautiful Earth. And in that regard, it's always been on my radar as like, gotta watch this.
Yeah.
Gotta see what this is about, you know? But I've also never really been an anime-man.
Yeah, same. Anime, just in a lot of ways, feels daunting to me, especially Akira, because it's kind of like Blade Runner, where there's a bunch of different versions, and you gotta make sure you watch the right one. And when we watched it the other day, we just winged it. Watched the one that just happened to be on Hulu. Oh yeah, sorry, mealtime.
All right. Akira. This one was not well licked. Just a little baby lick.
I've been requesting that people lick them less so you can open them easier.
Interesting. Akira, 1990. Was it 1990?
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, hi. Did you know anime can be cool? Did you know anime could beat ass? I didn't. Turns out it can. Who knew? Katsuhiro Otomo's 1990 film Akira beats ass. Have you ever read Watchmen and thought, I wish there was some more ambiguous and more Japanese? Well, then check out Akira because it beats ass. Set in 2019 Tokyo, Neo-Tokyo, Akira is about some biker gang doing some stuff, a resistance group doing some stuff, in a government organization with a bunch of little baby blue children who look like old people and can move stuff with their minds, and they're also doing some stuff. Then they all cross paths. One of the biker kids gets mind powers and becomes a supervillain with a robot arm and becomes a big goop monster and then transcends into another plane of existence with Akira and the little blue kids, I think. It's a lot cooler than I made it sound, I promise. Watch it. It beats ass. 8 out of 10. That's, yeah.
Akira beats ass, Chris.
That's pretty much nailed on the head. That's like, exactly what happens in that movie.
It starts, and it's you get that cool bike race or chase during in Neo-Tokyo. And it's
first they're hanging out in that little bar.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and he like does that thing where he needle drops as he leaves.
Yeah.
Our red pill jacket man.
Yes, yeah. And he gets on his cool red motorcycle with a bunch of like name brand stickers and stuff on it, which I thought was very cool, which is a nice little touch. A big thing I like about this is just that Neo-Tokyo feels like a place that people live in.
Yeah.
It's very detailed and like it's gross and grummy, but it also has character everywhere. So it feels like people actually live here. But they go through that chase scene, it's just the best looking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it does not let up. Just the rest of this movie is the best looking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy that all these hand-drawn animes from the 80s and 90s look better than a lot of the shit that they do with computers these days.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, like we were having the conversation earlier today. I was watching the new Evangelion, and there's just something about it. It's just off.
Yeah.
It looks, I mean, it is from like 2007, but I think the biggest thing that gets me, and they might not even be doing this. This might be something they're doing by hand, but like the robots in a lot of shots look CGI inside of this anime, but the anime looks super, super clean.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits with it. And I just love that 90s look of like, this is drawn, this is animated.
Yeah.
And just like all the like the little behind the scenes things I've seen of like rough sketches of the animation that look just as good without any ink or color. Or like all the headlights in this movie are like they draw what they have to draw and then go through with a black piece of paper with a hole cut out where the headlight's supposed to be and shine a light through it and take an exposure of that and put it over like the actual shot.
Yeah.
And so it just has this nice little, like it looks like a fucking headlight and it's great. Yeah. And like I said, it never lets up. Like even like mundane shit where like that doctor is like papers like printing out of a device and they're all connected, and so the paper's just folding over itself. It's like that's the most realistic thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it reminds me of like when you see side by side pictures of the reference models for like old Disney cartoons. You're always just like, there's barely any difference between the reference photo and the animation. It's crazy.
Well,
and
that's cheating because they rotoscope it. They draw over the animation or the videos of people doing shit. Just so you know.
Anyways, it has like the same effect where you're like, you're watching it and you're like, this literally looks like it's moving the same way that like, it's insane.
But they're not cheating like those hacks at Disney.
Yeah. But yeah, it has that effect. Every time you see motion, it looks like fluid, organic motion.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's insane.
It looks like almost, it feels like a mix between Disney stuff and like Miyazaki movies, where like I read somewhere that in Miyazaki movies, like, you know how like water moves kind of weird, or like
I'm pretty unfamiliar.
Well,
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it like kind of globs together and stuff like that. Or like the way wind moves through stuff. It's the explanation I've heard is they try to draw it and animate it the way water would feel, the way water feels instead of the way it looks. So it has like a more of like a visceral thing to it when you see it. You're like, oh, I can feel that. I know what's happening. And so it feels halfway between that and like Disney stuff. But it could be wrong. It could just be so well animated that I feel that way.
So that's a big, huge thing that makes this work just beautifully, is it's like, can't take my eyes off it the whole time. Also, what's going on with this cyberpunk? How come when people are doing cyberpunk, this isn't how they're doing cyberpunk? This is cool cyberpunk. Because it's like, there's a degree to which it's like a believable jump in technology, like the same way that I feel like Blade Runner kind of does the same thing, where like it pretty much looks like this could be the future. Because the way the future usually happens is that most things are still pretty shitty, but then we have crazy, insane iPhones in our pocket. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, I feel like if you're designing a cyberpunk world, that's kind of how you have to approach it. Is like, okay, everybody's going to be wearing pretty normal clothes, and everybody's going to have cars that are a little bit crazy or whatever, and then fuck it up with some anime and some stuff flies. Yeah. You just do like a little bit of weird stuff here and there, you know? And I think it works very well.
Yes, but also I think it's even a little bit more than that, like you said, with like Blade Runner. Just the way a city looks, I think, is the biggest thing that will help cyberpunk for me personally. Like the way the Neo Tokyo looks, or wherever Blade Runner takes place looks, that's what's cyberpunk to me. Not so much what people are wearing or the technology that they're using. Like when I played Cyberpunk 2077, I'm like, this just looks like a gross gray city with a couple neon signs. Like, buildings should be impossibly tall, and everything should have lights all the way up it. But no, when I play Cyberpunk, it just looks like Grand Theft Auto to me, and it's a huge, huge bummer.
Yeah, that was very curious when I saw you playing it. I was like, how is this even justifiably Cyberpunk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept looking at it, and I was like...
The jacket's got lights in them.
I was like, even the car you're driving just looks like a normal car.
Yeah, I wish that game was good.
Yeah.
Like, apparently they fixed it, but I'll never know because I don't trust them. I'd like to believe they fixed it, but the way that thing ran on my PlayStation 4, I have no faith that that's going to run on my PlayStation ever well. It also, when it was working, wasn't a huge fan of it.
Yeah, your Xbox the other day, I don't know what happened to it, but it was like...
an Xbox?
Well, it's PlayStation. I looked over at it, and like there was a DVD hanging out of it.
Oh yeah, it does that.
And then it was going. So I pulled the DVD out of it, and it just kept going. Like as if it was trying to like push or pull in. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go back to bed.
There's some problem with like the connection in the eject button.
Yeah.
So it thinks it's just constantly being pushed. So it's always trying to spit a disc out. Don't know how to fix it. Don't know if I will. I might just rip the button off. Because you can just hit eject disc from the controller or whatever.
So what's going on in this movie? You got the main guy,
whose name is
Red Pill Man.
Red Pill Man. Hey, I just read that you can get the bike from AKIRA in Cyberpunk 2077, so I might start playing Cyberpunk.
Oh, that's pretty tight, yeah. And he grew up kind of like some sort of like orphan-ish something or other, or just low income.
Yeah, I think he was an orphan. Yeah, he met what's his face at the orphanage.
Yeah, he meets the guy who becomes the super villain. Tetsuo, yeah. And they have a little biker gang they hang out with, or whatever. So there's some emotional core or center to this movie. They've got some friction because Red Pill Man, as is customary with people who are red pilled, is sort of the leader. He's the guy who's like always like, I am, in charge. Follow my lead, right?
I got the coolest bike.
Yeah, he's got the Leo energy.
Hell yeah, he does.
And Tetsuo is fed up with that bullshit, He doesn't like being treated like a child.
Understandably.
Yeah, so when he gets mind powers, it's nice that Tetsuo wants to kind of chump him out, show him up a little bit, but he never tries to kill Red Pill Man.
I don't think he even tries to chump him up. He very much so tries to help him all the time, and Tetsuo is like, no, man, fuck you. I don't need your help. I don't need your Leo energy in my life. I'm a real Raphael. All right, I got this.
Then you have the little blue children.
Who look like old people, and they're just disgusting.
I don't understand their powers or where they get them from or what it has to do with Akira. I'm not going to lie to you.
Don't know what Akira is either. I think he was one of these kids that transformed into a god, basically.
But the people think he was a god, but then the general says that it is not God. I feel like there's some subtext to be read into there, and I feel a bit inept that I did not. But also, I think it's okay to not understand everything sometimes. And, I don't necessarily feel like I need to understand. I feel like there'll be times where I watch this again, and maybe I finally start to get something out of that aspect of it. So I feel like, just with there's got to be something with how the people as the hypothetical, the larger, right, versus maybe the general who represents maybe the government or the military or something like that, and Akira could just be something about religion or whatever, and how it's something for the people, and when the government has a hold of it, it's not whatever real, and I don't know, I'm just spitballing. But like I said, even without diving into that kind of stuff, hey, this is a good movie.
Yeah, it was my biggest takeaway from it is when it finished. I remember looking at you and going, "So what is Akira?" And you're like, "I don't know." And I had the same thing with Evangelion. When I finished it, I was like, no spoilers because I know you haven't finished it yet. I was like,
yeah,
where did Rey come from? And I looked it up, and everyone's like, oh,
yeah. I was like, she seems robotish or clonish,
and it's
we'll see when I get there.
And I feel the same way about Akira as I do Evangelion.
Yeah.
It's just vibes, man.
And I reckon there's a degree to which, perhaps because we're not anime, maybe because it's a new genre to us.
Do you think it could be, talking out of my ass here, do you think it could be a Japanese thing where...
I think there might be cultural barrier there
exactly.
for sure. I mean, there's little things that I've observed about both Evangelion and Akira. One being the fact that they're always setting it in New Tokyo, or Neo Tokyo, or whatever it is, right? Just this idea that old Tokyo has been done away with in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if it ties into that whole thing that you always hear about Japan and their obsession with large monsters and just that close relationship they have with mass destruction because of the bomb and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's just that idea that everything's impermanent, right? One day things are gonna be different, right? So I don't know. The powers. This also very interesting. The whole the hunger thing, right? There's that insatiability to it, right? That it wants to. That's why he becomes a big gross whatever, right? Because he's sucking everything kind of up into his.
But it doesn't happen to the kid. Why doesn't it happen to the little blue kids?
Because he's special. He has it worse than anybody. That's why they have to put him on meds or whatever, so that he doesn't go nuclear.
Okay, I buy that, but he does. And then he transcends into another universe.
And that saves everybody? Does that save everybody?
I think what happens is the little blue kids with Akira transport to another dimension or world or universe or something like that to save everybody from him.
Oh, the kids are the ones that save everybody from him.
Yes.
Okay. Also, the kids, great, love it. They're a little weird and freaky. I'm all into that weird shit.
My biggest problem is there's the two boys and then the little girl. And the little girl does most of the heavy lifting dialogue-wise. and she's very obviously a voice actress. She's an older woman, an adult woman, doing a child's voice. Works perfectly. I buy it. I believe it. And then the two boys are very obviously two actual boys who are like, what are you, where are we going? And I'm like, oh, this sucks. I hate this.
There's a animated film, short film. I think it's called The World of Tomorrow.
Okay.
It's done by Don Hertzfield. He's the one that did like what is it? It's Such a Beautiful Day.
Okay, yeah.
And the premise of the short film is that he spent just X amount of time playing pretend with his niece. She's like 4. And then he just cut specific bits of her audio, smashed it together, and built a narrative around her being like the main character.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just like the concept being that like she is being visited by her future self, and her future self is explaining to her that she is like Katie 257, meaning that she's the 257th time that Katie's been cloned, because Katie is like the first person to ever be cloned successfully or whatever. So she's a very, very important figure in the future. And the Katie from the future, her name's not Katie, keeps trying to explain all this stuff to her, and she'll like, here's an example. She's like, you may be familiar with the internet as during your time we've invented the internet or whatever, but in the future everybody exists in the outer net. The internet is all around you. Anything you could imagine, it can be thought up and stuff like that, and so then it cuts to her and she's like, I drew a triangle or whatever, and then it cuts back to Katie 257 and she's like, I drew a snake boy, and just stuff like that.
I'd love to see that. That sounds great.
Yeah, I think there might be 2 parts. Each one's only like 17 minutes.
I love I love when a voice actor for a child is a child.
Yeah.
But it has to be along those lines. When
Yeah.
you're kind of letting the kid do whatever, and then you work around that. Like,
Where's my money, bitch?
Yeah. Like the kids in Akira arguably have too much to say.
Yeah.
And they're just reading lines, and it comes off very unnatural. But like, I love, I think Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
Boo, the little girl in that. The girl who voiced Boo.
Yeah.
They just followed her around with a microphone and just recorded just random shit she was saying and put that in the movie. And I think that's great. Or, I can't remember what it's called. It was a cartoon that was on YouTube. It was by like the Channel Frederator people who did Adventure Time. It looks like Adventure Time. Bravest Warriors, that's what it's called. I remember almost none of it, but there's a character named Catbug, who's a cat and a ladybug at the same time, who is voiced by, I think, a 4-year-old boy. And it's great, because they give this kid these lines, and he just kind of reads them how he's reading them, and there's no real direction to him, and I don't even know if he's getting all the words right, but it's great. It's hilarious. He's just like, I can't even riff an example. It's just great. He just says, I'm Catbug a bunch, or like, where's my big old bee? And it's just great. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he sounds like a kid, and it makes it cute and very, very funny. So, yeah, if you let a kid just wing it and then work around that, I think that's how you get it. If anyone here who's making a cartoon is listening.
Yeah, I think we've tapped all that can be tapped from that well. But something I thought about also is the very first episode and the second one. I don't know if the series dips back into it, of Batman Beyond. They deal with that motorcycle gang, the Jokers. And
Yeah.
that seems like a decent nod to Akira. It's got the same kind of vibe with their little
right.
motorcycles and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and also another thing, or whoever wrote that letter also brought it up. I was getting real big Watchmen vibes from Akira as well.
Yeah.
Just like color-wise, and like I said about the city feeling real, and there's like little reoccurring characters in the city that you see from time to time that don't have real like motivation or development, but at the end when the city's getting destroyed, you see all them, so it feels more like there's more weight to it, you know?
Yeah. I would say it's got a similar like social commentary vibe from it, but also I am an absolute idiot who didn't pick up entirely on the social commentary, so I don't know what's up.
Exactly. I can't really pick up on what's going on with Akira as much as Watchmen, because I read Watchmen like once a year probably because I like it so much. And also there is so much explanation inside of Watchmen. I know exactly what it's about, but it does seem
this is a much more ambiguous.
Yeah. Akira feels like a Japanese 80s animated comic book. It was a manga first. Story about, basically nuclear war and Watchmen's the Western version of it. And I was doing some research. So I'm not the only person who has had this thought, and I was like, oh man, I wonder if one of them got any of this from the other one. And from what I was reading, it would have been impossible because Watchmen came out after. It would have been impossible for Alan Moore to get a copy of Akira in those days. So it just happened to be two dudes thinking the same shit, doing the same shit at the same time, which I think is very cool.
Yeah. I think ultimately Akira's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd give it a 9.
Yeah.
I think I'd give it an A. Well, I don't know how we always forget that we do letter gradings, and we always start with this out of 10. But yeah,
it's an A plus.
I'd give it an A. I'd give it a solid A.
Yeah. Is that Mattress Man? If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time,